I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social Security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I'm Ken Reed, as always, your TV Guidance Counselor, and this is the show where each and every week since Valentine's Day 2014, I've welcomed an interesting guest to discuss classic television using a back issue of TV Guide from my personal collection as the inspiration for our conversation, and this week is no different. This week I welcome the amazing Glenn Rubenstein. Glenn is like the podcast king, but just an innovator, a writer, a producer. Go to Glenn Rubenstein.com. I put a link in the show description here, but just an awesome guy that I've known for a number of years and wanted to have on the show forever. And I'm glad that we finally got to do it. And as you can see by the length of this episode, do it, did we do? Indeed. I don't know if that's a thing. Do it, did we do? Which sounds like a 60s song lyric, but is in fact not. It's what we did this week. So if you like the long ones, this is a long one. It's a double-sized episode of TV Guidance Counselor. So even though my birthday was a couple weeks ago, this is a gift to you, and America's birthday was last week. This is a gift to America. I don't know. America's terrible. Everything's awful, except for this episode, which is a lot of fun. But it was really nice to catch up with Glenn this week, and I think you guys will enjoy this one a lot. Thank you for all your birthday wishes, and thank you guys for just staying in touch. I think it's important to reach out to people and let them know how you're doing. You can do so at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com. Thank you to our new patrons as well. It is a huge help now more than ever. I know times are tough, but if you have a couple extra bucks and you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. And if you pledge $5 or more a month, which I saw a bunch of you did the annual things. Thank you very much. I think you pay for 10 months and you get a year if you pay all at once. So it's like $50 instead of $60. You get access to the archive. So every TV guide that I've scanned, all the PDFs are in folders in a Google Drive, and you can go and pull those up anytime you want. And in addition, every week that we do use the TV guide, which is most weeks, I post the PDF. Like this week, you get this 1985 TV guide. And this is like a quintessential TV guide. It's a good one, as you will see when we discuss. So you can pull that up and play along. And if there's a guide you're looking for and it's not scanned, you can message me and I will try to pull it and scan it for you, even if there's not an episode yet of that issue. So you can do all that there. Anyway, I've been babbling long enough, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Glenn Rubenstein.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
After a long time, finally, live via satellite from lovely Las Vegas, Glenn Rubenstein, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this. I've been wanting to have you on for literally years, probably before the pandemic, although it feels like before the pandemic was like a year ago.
I know. I hate, this is like the total geek reference. I'm starting to think of it like Marvel's The Blip, where we just lost these years because I can't even account for it if I had to. Like, I think I decided I was going to learn to pick locks at one point.
I did that too. I bought one on Amazon, like a lock pick, like a practice kit thing.
Yeah, and it was like, I'm going to learn how to make a taqueria-style burrito at home. And the key is wrapping it in foil and then putting it on the griddle.
Yep.
To really give it that finish. Yeah, we all had the strangest hobbies. But you know what's funny, though, is I didn't even crack the terabytes of old VHS. I think we made it through a lot of Night Flight and Night Tracks.
Nice.
But I'm still not caught up on 120 minutes or some of these other random recordings that I've just accumulated over the years.
I always lived my life hoarding pop culture stuff, like pretty much for exactly what the pandemic was, like not knowing that's what it was. I'll be like, there'll be a time when I'll just have to, and then I didn't really dip into it too much. I was like, I'm just gonna watch Dawn of the Dead again and feel bad about stuff.
Or the weird binge watches, it's like I guess let's go through Head of the Class now.
Yep. Although, did you watch the new one?
Yeah, we tried. We made it 2 episodes in.
Couldn't. Yeah, I was the same thing. I couldn't. It wasn't tied enough to the original series.
I know, and it's a shame because the lead actress who was on One Day at a Time.
Oh yeah, she was good.
Yeah, she's really good, but it just didn't feel connected enough.
I was hoping for like a Degrassi Next Generation kind of vibe, but it just felt like a boring like Nick show.
I know. And I feel like that's how everything should be rebooted these days, is just look to Degrassi and say, who had children that now we can center this around? I mean, I'm waiting. We're probably 4 years away before we get Step Up the Next Generation and Moose and Allison Stoner had a kid and they have a dance crew. And now we have a new series of movies.
Yeah, and like one of them has to be the trainer, but he's in a wheelchair now. And, you'll have to, because it always has to be like a slightly more dramatic, just like in the style of the Bradys.
I know. Oh my God. Yeah. And because that's what we were all clamoring for. Just a really serious take.
I love these Bradys. I wish they did like a real 30-something type dramedy.
Which is odd because I remember as a kid when the Brady Brides came on.
Oh, yeah.
I remember thinking, it just blew my mind. I was like, we can just pick up a TV series 10 years later or 7 years later. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. What's Happening Now did that for me.
Yeah. Oh, What's Happening Now was so awesome.
Martin Lawrence's first gig.
He was on that. Rerun was on for a season and negotiated. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were talking about that, and we were trying to remember Anne Marie Johnson's character name on Double Trouble. And then for some reason, my wife out of nowhere pulls out that her character name on What's Happening Now was Nadine.
Oh, yeah. Nadine, I remembered. I couldn't tell you, and I'm a big Double Trouble fan, and I couldn't tell you her character name, but she was like from Jamaica or something. Yeah, she was some Caribbean thing. I loved her on that. But speaking of that year, like you ended up picking an issue that was older than I thought you were going to go. You went with January 5th to the 11th, 1985, which is when both Double Trouble second season and What's Happening Now were airing. And why did you pick this year?
So I was thinking about it, and I listened to this show, and I always pop big time when somebody picks this era or the sweet spot. And I think part of the reason, Ken, why I was like, we have to do this, is I was so afraid someone else was going to pick it. And I have to admit that I sort of engineered this to pick what I thought was the perfect week because the ratings game was still showing on Showtime in repeats, although I don't think I saw it in the listings. Might have picked the wrong, and I could talk about the ratings game for an hour. I think it's one of the best, probably my favorite thing Danny DeVito has ever done.
And no one ever talks about it.
No one talks about it, but it came out on Blu-ray 5 years ago.
Yeah. And it's on all the streamers. It was like from like the earliest days of like the Tubies and Hulus. Yeah. It was like always on all of them.
So good. Okay. So the reason I picked this though, is it is a weird window that it was a week in time when Double Trouble and It's Your Move were both on the air.
Yeah.
And for It's Your Move, it was also like the second part of the It's Your Move episode.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at everything else that was on this week, and I was like, if Ken and I are going to talk about a week in TV, this has, I think, the best mix of the things that I want to dive into with.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with this one. And I mean, right from the cover, like it's an Elvis cover, which 85, not a particularly Elvis-y year. But there were specials on HBO and Showtime for some reason in 1985, January, about Elvis. What is it, 8 years after his death? I don't know why. Like it makes
I think
no sense.
now, in 2025, I think now we might be in an era where you can finally say, like, maybe this Elvis thing's finally died down a little bit.
A little.
You know, we had the movie.
Although, when was that movie? 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. But wasn't Tom Hanks shooting that when he got COVID? Wasn't that?
I think so, yeah. I think
so it would have been like 2 or 3 years ago. But man, the Presley estate just makes sure Elvis never too far from the public's mind. But 85 also, I was doing the math and I'm like, if we say that, you know, the 80s started January 1st, 1980, this is literally the middle of the 1980s.
Yeah. And I would argue that much like the 1950s ended when Kennedy got shot in 1963.
Yeah.
The 80s kind of started like 84.
Yeah.
Like it's
What we
still felt
associate
kind of
them with.
70s. Yeah, yeah. So this is like prime 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because when I think about 80s nostalgia, if I have to think about pre-internet video games were still new, hip hop was still the quote unquote new music of the popular culture. This is where I feel like the 80s really kicked in. And I'm sure you have this as well. Nothing annoys me more than when I watch something now that's set in the 80s and there's an anachronism or they have the year wrong, or it's like, yeah, technically the song was recorded at this point, but no one had heard of this.
It wasn't. Yes. One of my pet peeves, and also side note, speaking of that Elvis movie, that movie is one of 2 films that features actors portraying real people who've been on this show.
Wow.
Steve Binder, who is portrayed in that movie, has been on this show. And the other film is the Live from New York, because someone plays Lorraine Newman.
That's right. That's right.
I hate when they get the years wrong. And then also the thing that every period piece does, especially 80s ones, is they go, it's 1985. Everyone's house looks like 1,000% 80s. They went and bought everything new January 1st. They did. And I'm like, no, people's houses looked 60s and there were like 4 80s things. And like, that's not how that's not how everybody lived.
Yeah, the stereo was from the late 70s. They maybe had a microwave.
Yeah.
If they had a VCR, maybe it was a Betamax. Maybe it was that weird U-matic consumer 3/4 inch or 1 inch tape.
That Elvis had that he used to tape Monty Python on.
Oh my God. We had a U-matic. I had 2 tapes. So I would have to decide, do I let the TV version of Grease 2 go tonight to record something else?
Speaking of Double Trouble.
Yeah, right?
Seagal twins in there.
Oh my God.
Oh, love them. Almost had them on the show. So close.
Really? You and I had a bonding moment on social media. We were talking about first crushes. And I remember, I guess what I would have been 8, about to turn 9 at this point. And I remember having an existential crisis of figuring out how I was going to grow up to marry both Seagal twins and juggle that. You know?
Although I had the same existential crisis and I landed on Kate.
Interesting.
Who was Jean Seagal, I think.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. But because she was a fun one.
Yeah. Her personality was better, although I don't know. I mean, maybe, who knows?
They're both the same. Yeah.
That's good. Let's completely reduce their individual identity.
Yeah,
just
both the
to
same person. They don't matter. They have no individual identity. No, I think they were, I feel like I read this. They played characters that were kind of the opposite of themselves on the show. Like it was kind of like I'm the bookish one and I'm going to play the crazy one kind of thing. I think I've read that.
Yeah, I would love to know the behind the scenes lore. And, I went down a rabbit hole with the theme song because the composer of the theme song, but you can't get like a studio version online. No. And look, I know we all have mixed feelings about AI, but I will tell you that you can pick some of these AI music services and upload a poor recording of a 80s theme song, and it will spit out like a studio quality version of this that you can put on your iPod. And
so that's a correct use of AI, like isolating vocal tracks or isolating instruments or like increasing the fidelity.
Yeah.
Like that's not the same as like write me a theme song for a show called Triple Trouble.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Hollywood, if they thought there was anything left in that IP. But what's interesting also about this week that didn't even occur to me until this morning, this week, still in the ad rotation, we had my Duster, the Pontiac Duster, which is a total bop.
My Duster.
Yes. And Sew It Up by the American Sewing Association with Roby.
Yeah. Yes.
And Jermaine Stewart.
Which I was just rewatching Friday the 13th, the series, the other night. I just rewatched Faith Healer the other day, which was shockingly gruesome.
Yeah. Oh, that show messed me up some nights. It was very, very creepy.
There is some gruesome stuff in there. So yeah, fantastic week. And as a video game guy, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was the Christmas before the Nintendo Entertainment System was huge. Right?
Yeah, Nintendo Christmas 85 limited FAO Schwartz test market release, which is funny because had that failed, would the video game, would we all be playing PC games now exclusively?
We'd all be playing that Amiga flight simulator.
Oh my, Falcon 3.0 on the Amiga.
Yes.
That was dope. Yeah.
I only knew of that one because Mr. Wizard's World. There's a segment where he's like, check this out. The kid's like, whoa.
I was such a late PC guy. I had a Commodore 64 into the late 80s, which I upgraded to an Amiga like in 90. And then I finally got my first PC, like a 386, like in 93. And it's only because at the time I was covering video games.
Right.
Because I wrote to my local paper and I was like, hey, you don't have to pay me. I want to review video games.
Yeah, you were like 14 when you were doing it, right?
Yeah. And then I parlayed that into writing for the Examiner and testified against Nintendo in court. And it's a whole thing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was that was a weird, like half my life up from like 14 to 28, which was really weird. And sometimes I forget about that. That's my icebreaker at parties or gatherings where they're like, tell something, two truths and a lie. And then I testified against Nintendo in federal court. And that's always the one. People are like, that can't possibly be true. I'm like, let me tell you how I was grossly underpaid.
Oh, it was them pay. I was going to say it was because I actually just saw this, which is a separate thing in a TV guide earlier recently. There was a class action suit against KB Toys and Toys R Us and Nintendo for not racketeering, and it wasn't quite a monopoly, but essentially they had like a backdoor deal to supply Toys R Us with more inventory of like the hottest toys, and create a market there. And they would mark up. So it was a huge class action suit. That was all of those defendants, but this was a separate lawsuit. This
was Louis Galoob Toys versus Nintendo about the Game Genie game enhancer. And because Galoob was a San Francisco company and I wrote for the San Francisco Examiner, Galoob contacted me. They paid me $20 an hour, which was all the money in the world to me.
Of course.
At the age of like 15, 16. It's still a decent amount of money now, but I found out later that expert witnesses get paid way more than that. Yeah. So that was cool though. And hey, the Galoob won. The Game Genie was on sale everywhere for a time. I don't know. I think Galoob's assets got bought up by another toy company.
Hasbro, I think, bought them.
Yeah.
Because Galoob had some great toys. They had my first coveted toy that I have still not rebought in my adult life, which is the 12-inch Inspector Gadget toy.
Oh, wow.
All the different things in it. That was Galoob, and I specifically remember that being Galoob.
For me, like Vern with the pennies, I still think somewhere in a box from 6 moves ago, I'm going to find my PXL 2000 that I lost and want more than anything.
Someday you'll find it.
And could you imagine how that would look on a 4K screen? That weird pixel vision, like
garbage.
68 by 68 pixels. Yeah, but I want it so bad.
I feel like we could. There's a heist movie here where we go steal one of those.
Absolutely. They go for quite a bit now in the secondary market.
They do, because they record on regular audio cassettes, right? Am I remembering
yes.
that right?
Well, Type 2 high bias, the Maxell Type 2 of the lore tool of tape traders everywhere. You send me 2 blanks and I'll send you back a bootleg of They Might Be Giants.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Of all the Dial-A songs. So let's dive into, I have to look at this before we even get to the articles. We have a wonderful piece called Slowpoke. Oh no, I'm sorry. Slowpoke, because there's an exclamation point. And this is by the artist Debbie Bell Jarrett. And it's the original porcelain sculpture of one of America's most talented portraists of animals. And it's a little baby bunny with a snail, hence the name Slowpoke. And this charming art is at the quote attractive price of $45.
So how much is it on eBay now?
It's gotta be, I'm guessing. All right, we'll do the lookup. And you could break it up into 3 payments of $15. But this one I'm going to go with, this is oddly expensive now. So, and oddly, they're showing it actual size in the TV guide, which never happens.
Oh, that's cool. Well, Ken, I hate to tell you, some investments go up, but some go down. You can get one now for $14.99 plus delivery.
So that's like one payment. Yeah,
I know.
Best offer.
Not like Time Life Mysteries of the Unknown, which I got my wife for Christmas, and to get an entire set of that cost me a bit. I think I had to buy like 2 different collections and merge them. because those
right.
last few books, you had to keep that subscription going.
Yeah, the later issues are much harder to find. I had that when I got all the what was it, Mystics and Monsters series that they did before the Mysteries of the Unknown, which is actually like a really well done illustrated series of like every mythological monster, and it's like I think it's 13 volumes, and like the last two like are impossible to find. Impossible.
I know, and it's and you know what I think about getting a lot of the time is the chess set, the Civil War chess set
the
with
Civil
that
War
beautiful
chess
blue.
set. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't play chess and I'm not a Civil War aficionado, but as a kid, I was like, when I get older, I'll have a den that will sit in a place of prestige in my den.
Well, there's the Star Trek chess set they did too that everybody, those always come up really cheap. I do have PDFs of all the Mysteries of the Unknown books.
Well, we should talk about that.
So I'm going to read those in bed, you know.
Those commercials freaked me out. That and the what was it, the Enchanted World?
Yes.
Like, they started kind of like paranormal, Stonehenge, metal rod, electricity, and then they ended with like, as a child, black cats talk to me with the evil spirits.
A woman in Ohio burns her hand without touching anything. 400 miles away, a sister she never knew is in a house fire. You know, it's like, you're like, no, I don't want this.
Yeah, just get this evil off my television.
I just want a Minotaur. Then we have a really fascinating article in here. It's a piece about errant spelling.
Yeah, multiple pages about errant spelling.
Really well written, not 100% fluff piece. There's like some interesting stuff in here. The photo of him on his like state-of-the-art circa 1982 phone with a big pipe in his mouth.
Yeah.
Amazing. And he was the king of television at this time. Like nobody was even close.
And this was just Dynasty and the nighttime soaps era.
Love Boat, Fantasy Island.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty much. And he had there's a ton of like forgotten errant spelling nighttime soaps like Nightingales. About the nurses, you know, and like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was just making so much money. And he was doing a lot of made for TV movies too. Like he produced The Boy in the Plastic Bubble and a lot of that kind of thing. And I didn't know he worked on the Mod Squad.
I do remember that. Which is interesting. And I tried watching it. I love 21 Jump Street so much. I said, should I try the mods? And I couldn't get past the first like 3 episodes.
Yeah, I love, Peggy Lipton. Love Peggy Lipton. And I realized she's not that great of an actress and is more just nice to look at when he's in the Mod Squad. Because it works in Twin Peaks because she's so like tortured, you know, and like sad. But in the Mod Squad, like she's kind of got the same demeanor and it's like, you're a cool mod super spy. No.
Sure that the movie rebooted that. The movie rebooted that like nobody cared.
No, it was not a beloved. I think people knew the name.
Yeah.
I feel like people knew the name, and this might be completely apocryphal, but I seem to remember like every third black stand-up comedian for like 3 years would have a punchline that was like, what are you, Link from Mod Squad? And so that was like the slightly cooler Huggy Bear, you know?
I was just going to say, yes, that was like the hacky go-to thing, right?
Yep.
Pop culture references that everybody just knew.
Yeah, but nothing about the show and it was not beloved. Like, yeah, Link from Mod Squad, obviously. I've heard of it. And it rhymes. And then there's a really interesting commentary in here about TV crime coverage. Yeah. And it kind of bummed me out because it's really correct and nothing has changed. And it's kind of like, guys, come on, this is not right. We got to fix this. And then they haven't. It's just gotten worse.
Oh, yeah. It's like Nightcrawler is always on cable. Yeah. And I will watch that movie whenever it's on. It's so insanely watchable. And then I just think this was 10 years ago, and we are actually living in a much worse society now than what's being portrayed here. And strangely, Jake Gyllenhaal's character is, abhorrent, like a terrible person in that film. But every time I watch it, I also feel strangely motivated. Like he had a goal and he got things done.
Right. He could have Tony Robbins the shit out of that. And some people would have followed it.
I want a Nightcrawler sequel where now where Leo Bloom is hosting a podcast.
Yeah.
It had some really interesting vaccine misinformation.
Yep.
And is trying to sell you like his course.
Yep.
Also,
and his supplements.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it would be a seamless transition. That's all that's missing from Nightcrawler. Because he says, I learned a lot on the internet. All that's missing is him going like, and I've got a podcast.
Yeah. I put a lot on the internet. Yeah. Like the conceit of this for the listener is essentially, if you just watch TV crime coverage, you would be led to believe that liberal cities burned to the ground and, children are being kidnapped off the streets and murdered and molested every 2 minutes. And they're like, no, it's actually way less than it ever was, but we're hearing about it more and it's more sensationalized. So people's sense of it is that this is the case. And it just made me so upset how much worse this has gotten. Because there are truly people who are like, well, it was a shame to see Portland, Oregon get burned to the ground and now it doesn't exist anymore. And you're like, what are you talking about?
I know.
It's
media.
Yeah, we learned nothing. And then we get into, there is a little, I always have to mention Bill Campbell whenever he comes up because I forget that he had a career before and after The Rocketeer. And he was on Crime Story, but this is about him being on Dynasty, which I've never seen.
Yeah, same here. I almost watched that one that Maxwell Caulfield was on because I like Grease 2 so much. I almost watched it, but I was like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, it just seemed like not even like an ironic or like a I don't watch things ironically. There's some stuff from that era that I'll watch just to like soak in the ambiance.
Yeah.
And
just to understand and realize how now we're older than these people, yet they look ancient compared to us.
Yeah, they're 32 and they look 60.
Oh my God. Like Harry Hamlin in LA Law looks older than I'll ever feel.
Grizzled.
Yes.
Grizzled.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Although I think Clash of the Titans helped us with that.
Yeah. He was just oily and glistening all the time.
Then in the video cassette report, and I swear we'll get to the listings, but this fascinated me. I don't know if you looked at the video cassette report.
I did. Yes.
VHS nerd.
I think I know what you're going to talk about.
Love Skills.
No, wait. Yes, there's that. Yes.
So this is a review of a tape that I've never heard of called Love Skills. And it's $39.95, and it says an extremely graphic guide to human sexuality and lovemaking. Trouble is, it's neither very instructional nor very helpful. In fact, it's more like Masters and Johnson meets MTV. Many of its scenes, especially the long segments on fantasies, resemble nothing more than X-rated rock music videos. Long on titillation, but short on any kind of educational value. They're improved much by the banalities of the script. But to put it another way, this program is insulting. Like, no shit, dude. Like, this is a thing people buy so they can be like, I'm not buying pornography. This is educational. This guy sat down and he's like, I've learned nothing.
Do you have this? Is this on some of those sites that we both are members of?
It has to be. I've never seen this or heard this, but I'm curious now.
Okay, so let's not sitcom it and both like try and buy it and then drive up the price.
Yeah.
But if it's not, I will buy this and bust out the VCR and digitize it.
Yeah, awesome.
This has music videos apparently in it.
Yeah, and what a weird thing for them to review, because for people who don't know, like the TV Guide Video Cassette Report reviews tops like 4 videos a month.
Yeah,
a week rather. So they've like gone out of their way to do this one, and this seems like some writer there who hasn't signed this, because this is, it's Howard Paulskin. He has signed it. Bought this tape and was like, this is not as advertised. I wanted to learn lovemaking. This is not helpful.
One of the most angry customers I've ever seen is I was in a video store in the mid 90s and someone came in to return a pornographic tape complaining that the woman on the box cover was not in the actual video. So maybe this was a similar situation. Maybe he had an expectation and then, was let down and said, I'm going to use my platform to let the people know, save your hard-earned money.
In my long history of humiliating strangers in public settings, and especially adults when I was a child, because they were berating a salesperson or a service worker. I was at a video store, it was Endless Video, which was later bought by Blockbuster. So Endless still had pornography. And this guy in front of me was arguing about this late fee. He was not going to pay it. And so I looked at what the video was that he rented. He had it in his hand. And I just wanted to rent my video and get out of here. And I went, hey, everybody, this guy doesn't want to pay his late fee on Buttman 4. I always remember it was Buttman 4. And he was like a full on, 40-year-old dad, right? Like circa 1990 or whatever. And this was at I think it was a Sunday afternoon. And I was probably 9 or 10. And I was made everyone aware that this guy rented Buttman 4 and returned it late. And then had the nerve to not pay the late fee. And he immediately paid it and left. And I was like, there's a power here.
And it's weird because you're a bit younger than me, if I recall correctly. And there was something weird in the 90s that franchise porn was a thing. They realized not just sequels, but you could have a gimmick and just put out installment after installment. And people would be like, no, I trust Buttman.
Yeah. This is a seal of approval. This is like the Good Housekeeping seal of Buttman. I know what I'm getting with a Buttman release.
Yeah, he wouldn't make another one.
No.
If he didn't have things to share.
He's not just doing it for the money.
Yes. And what's terrible in my mind, because I'm a little hazy, this was back in the era where I had to convince the older friend to rent videos. And then they would get mad if I didn't return them and they had late fees. And I'm like, was Buttman Seymour Butts or was that John Stagliano? I know just enough.
Yes.
Also because, and I talk about this, I do with Jeff Gersman on his Patreon, a podcast called Game Boys to Men, which is about our teenage adventures going to video game conferences and working in the industry. And CES, where they had video games, also had an adult film section. So you can bet that when I was, 15, 16, 17, I was I can go meet, Brittany O'Connell or Seika.
Christy Canyon.
And just wait in line and get a photo and autograph and bring these back to my friends. That seemed like the height of kitschy, campy fun as a teenager.
And I should put it this way. CES didn't have an adult section. The adult con had a CES section. That's how they were, because everybody, it was no, we're going to look at technology.
Yeah, I mean, it was insane because you would see everyone with their badges because they had to wear it to get in. And it would be people that worked at Mitsubishi, Sony, Pioneer, and they're waiting in line to meet, Randy West or Sunset Thomas.
Damnedest thing, I thought it was a different line. I turned around, the next thing you know, I got a picture of me and Jill Kelly. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I found some of those 8x10 and it's the worst personalized inscription. It's just, now I look at it and I'm just oh my God. It was just so cringy to think about.
What are they going to it's bad enough at regular conventions where it's a celebrity doesn't know this person who's keep on keeping on, or some quote from their movie. But what, I know you whack it to me. Love whatever. That's it's so ridiculous. What a weird world.
It's such a weird world. And it was weird then because it was it's the Boogie Nights thing, right? It's it used to be contained to where, I mean, it was knowing the Marvel or DC universe. You didn't have to know that much or keep that much knowledge because at the time it's there were 12 books a month, a certain set amount of characters. Much like Boogie Nights, the adult industry was once like that. And then now it's so decentralized. It's insane. And everybody can have their niche and everybody can have their audience. And hey, more power to you if that's your thing. But there was a time when it really was Boogie Nights.
Yeah, there was actual studios and people who had contracts and people knew who they were and stuff.
Buttman was, cornered the market on butt-related content.
If anyone else tried to be I'm going to have a series about butts, they'd be hey, I don't think that's going to work. We've already done that. We got a guy. There's already a guy.
We got a guy.
Yeah. So let's dive in here with the listings. Saturday night, what are you doing?
Oh my God. I think I'm still waking up because I was watching Night Flight and Night Tracks at the same time the night before.
Yeah. And I will say in the afternoon, there's an amazing half-page ad for Commander USA's Groovy Movies. On page 22 of the PDF. I loved that show. That was the sort of horror host show I first remember watching live. And this is like commissioned art. It's so he's showing Silly Cereals and Opening Remarks, Doctor of Doom, which I'd never heard of, but Samson and the Vampire Women, which is an El Santo Mexican movie, and I love. And this, I think, this day, January 5th, 1985, I watched that airing of Samson and the Vampire Women. I believe it was the first time I saw that movie, and that's when I got super into like Mexican wrestlers and all those movies.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there were a couple things on here where I was like, oh, I absolutely was watching this at this time, but I didn't leave the house on weekends sometimes because it's literally like that line, not that they wrote it, but in Lemonhead's Outdoor Type, you know, what if something's on TV and it's never shown again? Like that should have been like on my, that was my personal credo that I lived by as a child. So it's like we had Nick Rocks during the day, and I didn't have MTV yet. We didn't have cable on my side of town. So I would have been like that, then flipping over to Kid Video, which Kid Video, I feel like the opening credits and the end music video were always what I watched for. And then the cartoon I just sort of tolerated.
Cartoon wasn't great. I had such a crush on the drummer.
A man of taste.
Yeah.
Weekend Special had the Jokes on Mr. Little, which had Richard Sanders as a teacher. I actually downloaded and watched this in anticipation of this. And it's one of those, you know, Les Nessman trying not to murder the children that keep playing pranks on him. He's very well cast. And then Voyagers was also on during the day, still in repeats, which would have been huge for me.
I found a guy, I was surprised by this. Someone on Etsy is selling a 3D printed replica Bog Voyagers like pocket watch thing.
Yes, there's a Voyagers Facebook group and people buy these on the regular, Ken.
There's enough people to warrant. Like, I didn't know there were that many Voyagers fans.
No, that show was really big. If you watched it when it first aired, I mean, Amino, you know, Salim Frye's brother, was on it. He's now a gifted photographer, you know, doing work behind the scenes. But no, Voyagers was, you know, pre-Quantum Leap. This was like
it's
accessible
like
time traveler, you know?
Yeah, it's an American Doctor Who in the 80s, kind of.
Yeah. And John Eric Hexum, I mean...
Lowest voice on TV.
So, you know, he's the first celebrity I ever met. It just so happened... Yeah, it just so happened we were at Universal Studios in Hollywood on a family trip. And there was a sign, and this was pre-cover-up, post-Voyager. There was a sign where it was like, today, get John Eric Hexum's autograph. And I was like losing my shit at the age of, you know, like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing. No line. Nobody knew who he was. So he talked to me and my brother and my mom and my dad. He talked to us probably for a good 20 minutes.
Wow.
I need to find it. I have a photo with him somewhere. And the funniest thing is I remember there was a photo of him looking kind of like tough. And I was like, oh, sign that for me. And then my brother was like, I'll get the other photo. And the other photo was like beefcake shirtless.
Of course.
Like sexy.
Of course.
And so we still have the photos. I've got him in an album and we got pictures with him. But yeah, he was so nice. And then tragically, he was not only the first celebrity I met, he was the first celebrity death I experienced, which I remember hitting me so hard.
Well, if you met him, especially, yeah. And he would have set a weird false expectation for you, because if I recall, he was kind of a big dude. Like, not like actors are tiny people. Like almost everybody's like, I thought, you know, this guy was huge and I met him and he's shorter than my grandmother. But like John Eric Hexum was like 6'4" or something. Like he was like he looked like what you would think like a movie star guy would be like, you know, like a strapping lad. So he would have been like, yeah, that's all like leading men movie star TV actors.
He really set the bar, man. And thankfully I've had other experiences similar where people would take time out of their schedule and really have a meaningful connection and conversation even in a short amount of time. But yeah, so it's Voyagers reruns I was huge about. And I remember, you know, it's funny, that was the first show that when that came out on DVD, I was like, okay, I think that was my first pre-order of TV on DVD. You know, mileage varies on the actual episode quality of that, but there are some really good ones there. The Titanic one I remember as a kid loving.
I was surprised they never released Otherworld. Like,
really?
Of the two shows that I would think they would release on DVD between Voyagers and Otherworld, which are kind of like in the same kind of realm, Otherworld felt to me like the one that would have got released.
So clue me in on Otherworld, because I haven't actually watched that one.
Oh, Otherworld is basically Sliders, 1983, NBC, but pure sci-fi. So it's sort of like Land of the Lost meets V via Sliders. So this family gets sort of sucked into these other dimensional worlds, and they're like crazy high concept sort of hell worlds. And I think it was like 6 or 7 episodes, but it was
8 episodes.
Big budget. They had a big budget. It looked really cool. It was shot on film. Like I recall a couple like really horrifying episodes, and it was like very serious. And nobody remembers it.
Yeah, Jonathan Banks, Tony O'Dell.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna have to check this out, man.
Yeah,
it's funny. Normally, when I listen to this show, I'm taking notes on your recommendations. So this is good. So I literally wrote this down.
Yeah, I had 3 episodes of Otherworld from my tapes that I know are like out in the place where you get those. I don't know if all 8 episodes are available.
Oh, interesting. You know, it's so weird. This is probably a longer conversation. I don't know if the audience is interested in this, but you've definitely done some acquisitions and found some media that like no one else has gotten.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there's like no guide to this. Like, how do you track stuff down? I called a production company once, speaking of John Eric Hexum, E.G. Daly, who was his partner at the time of his death. She was in kind of like a school break special sort of short film thing, this movie called Josie that was pseudo-religious. And I think, it wasn't, maybe it was one of the Carradines that was in it. And I remember my wife had talked about this and vaguely remembered it. We confirmed the title. I found the production company and just called them. And a guy ran me a VHS tape.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, oh, cool. Someone wants this. Yeah. I mean, when I worked at our local CBS and then our local UHF station, TV 38, I was like taking whatever I could of like Movie Loft airings and like, you know, just like, here you go. Or like our tape library guy. They had this massive warehouse, 1010 Mass Ave, literally like a warehouse of tapes. It was like the end of, you know, Indiana Jones there with the warehouse.
Yeah, yeah.
But every tape ever. And like when I worked there, I was a messenger and they would write down a tape number. I would have to drive down there and get it if they needed like archive footage. So I don't know if those have all been digitized. I imagine they haven't. But I remember that CBS, the local CBS station, filmed the entire Last Mission of Burma show.
Oh, wow.
Because they were doing an episode, like a little segment on it. And they had like Last Rites, the openers, full set and everything. And I was like, do you have that full set? He's like, yeah, here you go. Go down and get it. And I like went and got this tape of the entire show. So much stuff.
That's the heist movie, Ken, is that a bunch of Gen Xers and early millennials break into MTV to steal the digital archive. Yeah. That they're just sitting, you know, on a hard drive somewhere that they have no interest in monetizing or cashing in on their own nostalgia.
Or like a thing that only aired once. It's like, we need to prove this. This happened.
I couldn't believe, this is the thing. This is what I hate about like sort of the death of the streaming boom, is that we were all sort of promised, like the hardcore pop culture nerds 5 years ago, like everything's being digitized.
It's all there.
And they're going to find a way to put it all online and charge you money. And instead we got like 50 edited episodes of Yo MTV Raps.
Yeah.
On Paramount Plus.
You have the goddamn tapes. I want to pay you money.
No, and in fact, I'll pay you more if you leave the original commercials in.
Yeah.
Forget ad free, you know?
But what I've learned is, especially with like shockingly with larger companies, Disney, MTV, they have nothing. They have some air check tapes, but they would get just toss masters. So like a lot of times now when I see, like if I'm watching like the CBS Sunday morning show, cause I'm old, you know, they'll reference something old and they'll show a shitty clip from YouTube because they don't, part of it is they're too lazy to dig it up, but they don't have them. And I told this story in the show before, but the failed pilot that aired on The Wonderful World of Disney with George Carlin and Molly Hagan in it, called Just in Case. Have we told you about this?
Oh no, I haven't seen that one. No, I'm a big Ask Max guy though, and Double Switch.
So this one Disney. He was a dead detective named Just in Case. And he was partnered with Molly Hagan, who this is her first thing after Code of Silence. So she was probably 20, who was like a young, plucky assistant, and they solved crimes together. And this was the failed pilot. And so Molly called me one day and was like, hey, do you have a copy of that? And I was like, I do. And she was like, because Disney called her and asked her if she had a copy.
Oh,
because they didn't have it. And so I made her a copy. And so like the one in the Disney like archive now is my tape.
That's amazing.
But
like, this is why home taping is so important. It's like, remember that guy, this is a whole other thing that no one except people on the site will get. But remember there was that guy in Portland with the VHS archive that was to rehome it.
Yep.
And then a dude got it and just sort of sat on it and did nothing with it.
And everyone was pissed.
Got their pitchforks out.
Yeah.
But then there was a documentary about what Marion Stokes by the same guy that did the Pee-wee documentary. I mean, it's kind of like the People's Archive. Like, this is why home taping is important, because there are all these things. And it's sad that in a DVR culture, like post VHS, pre-streaming, we have a generation of things that all got erased on DVR.
That's the most lost media. I always say that, like late 90s to about 2010, shockingly harder to find shows than stuff from 1978. Like, because it was just on. I will see DVRs and TiVos at thrift stores, and I will buy them. just
get the whatever's on. And it's all like episodes of ER and Friends and stuff. That's
it's available. A lot of soap operas, like almost every single one. Because I'm like, of course, what would be every day, and they're at work or whatever.
It's so frustrating.
So nothing.
And thank God. Well, it's even weird though, because piracy was doing VCDs in the late 90s and early 2000s, but even those are like nowhere. Like, I'm a fan of the short-lived WB sitcom Off Center, and it's like the VCD rips are the only evidence the show ever existed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's some of the Adult Swim shows. That was one of my first bootlegs were VCDs I would get on I think it was buy.com. Buy.com?
Oh yeah.
That was fantastic.
And then what's weird is in 2008, 2009, WB started a streaming free ad-supported services, but me and other people didn't even have the good sense to rip them then.
Yeah.
To get like MPEG 480 quality. But anyhow, though, I'm looking at this. It just caught my eye. Back to that Saturday night. There was Menudo, A Personal Portrait.
Yes.
Which I would absolutely have watched. For me, that's a holy grail media. I've gone to the Paley Center archive just to watch Menudo on ABC in studio qualities, like those 5 songs.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you a Menudo song, but I loved Menudo this year because everyone did.
Yeah. During the pandemic, we got kind of into because there was that mini series that aired on Spanish language TV.
Oh, yeah.
And then all the allegations came out and went, okay, now Menudo's a very complicated subject. And then we pivoted over to Timbiriche with Talia and Paulina Rubio. And then we decided we were going to learn Spanish so we could better understand Spanish pop music. And on the bootleg cable, we started watching MTV Spain, where current rock and roll all sounds like the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there's like Ginebras and these bands that are doing like amazing, like I Love You, like these bangers that are all in Spanish. So we're like, let's start doing Duolingo. I mean, again, pandemic stuff. But yeah, the Menudo Portrait, I would be interested to see that. And Dance Fever. There's not many episodes of Dance Fever online, but I really now enjoy that show quite a bit, especially with Adrian Zemed.
Yeah, Danny Terrio was first, and then Adrian Zemed took over, I believe. There's also a ripoff show called Dance... I can't remember the name, but it was hosted by Lorenzo Lamas.
Yes. Well, and then there was Dance into the Hits. Was that the Lorenzo Lamas one?
Maybe that was it. They would do like their own music videos. And
yes. The credits are online, and you need to watch the credits for Bill, the dude that, or I think his name's Bill, the one who looks like Billy Idol that's looking all tough while he's dancing.
I have like 2 or 3 episodes of that show. And
oh my God.
It's every video they make looks like, the best way I can describe it is, the old David Copperfield specials when he would do the wordless trick that was all like sexy with like, if you took that and took the magic trick out, that's what every video on that dance show looked like with Lorenzo Lamas.
You know what's funny? Do you ever do this? Do you ever watch old TV and see somebody and you just say like, and someone who didn't go on to fame, you say, I wonder what they're up to now. And then start Googling and end up on a Facebook profile
and try to get them on
Facebook
the show.
Comments. Yeah, there you go.
and
Oh, I
have
did that
sometimes.
with Dancing to the Hits. I did that, and there was like a post, and then a lot of them are still friends because a lot of other people on there were commenting on it,
Yeah.
and that warmed my heart so much.
Yeah, they're like,
to
it was
see.
like high school we went to. This was like summer camp or something.
Yes. But I'm also the person that we were obsessed with the port shopping guides on the first Disney cruise we went on.
Okay.
And the fact that they wanted to sell you on everything and like buying jewelry as an investment in the Caribbean.
Right.
And the woman would say, now you're going to want to write this down.
Yeah, of course.
And she gave these, it was actually the best sales pitch I've ever seen. To the point where I was like, well, I'm clearly adding her on Instagram now
Yeah,
and
of
curious,
course.
is there a video presentation? Can I find this? We were taking video off the TV in our room because we loved her sales pitch so much. And I'm just like, this is a masterclass.
Start
and
a
I just
cult,
need to know
we'll
what she's up
follow
to
you.
now. Yeah, start a podcast at least.
We'll
something.
follow you. Yeah, we live in a weird world.
I know. And the thing, you probably have to remember this too, when you meet people of some notoriety or fame, you have to remember that what they mean to you and your inside jokes, they are not in on.
No, they weren't there. They were there, but they weren't there.
Yeah. So you really have to watch kind of how you interact, or you have to do a lot of explaining. And also, they might not find it as funny or entertaining as
No.
you do.
No, almost
Yeah.
never. Yeah.
Very important, especially, and I think this is a good PSA in the age of the conventions and the paying for a photo. Like, their sense of humor might not be yours. So
Yeah.
make sure you're laughing with them, not at them, and just kindness first. Always.
Yeah, I always describe it as they did a temp job for 2 weeks 40 years ago, and you're asking them about a thing they photocopied. They don't remember it, and you're like, remember it was 41 copies? And they're like, was it? And you're disappointed because they don't know how many copies they made.
Yeah, speaking of Adrian Zemed, at a Grease 2 screening at a bowling alley he hosted in Las Vegas, we showed up. We got photos with him, and I wanted to talk to him about the nuance of Grease 2. And isn't it funny that when Stephanie has her nervous breakdown and is in, biker heaven with the cool rider and singing, the audience is just seeing her on stage, like singing, and then long periods of silence, which were Michael's part. And Adrian Zemed is like, dude, it was like the Tom Wilson, like, it's a movie.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't find this riff as amusing as I do. You know?
Well, it's like when I had Steve Johnson on, the special effects guy who created Slimer, and did a bunch of stuff on Ghostbusters. I said, Steve, there's a big controversy and argument on the internet over the cab driver in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, is he a ghost or is he a zombie? Because there's ghosts, but he looks like a zombie. And his answer was, it's a fucking puppet. And I'm like, that is the answer.
I also want to call out that Fight Back with David Horowitz was on.
Love that so much. My favorite.
Oh my God. I wish I could watch all of that. I would watch all of that, even though 90% of it's probably not relevant anymore.
It's, I think I have 4 episodes. They're a little bit later. Also, great banger of a theme song.
Yes.
That they would send you. So people would write in letters, and as like a prize, they would send them a 45 and I think later a cassette of the Fight Back full theme song. Tell them that they just can't win. Fight back. Someone tries to rip you off. And I love David Horowitz for the famous footage of him being on air when the guy has a gun to his head.
I haven't seen that.
So-
No, I have not seen that. I need to watch that.
He was an on-air news anchor, and I think in LA, and this guy broke into the station and had it with a gun, which turned out to be a fake gun, but they didn't know that. And he's standing there with the gun to Horowitz's head, making him read a prepared message this guy wrote.
Oh, I've heard of this. Okay, but I didn't know what footage was on.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, it's nuts. And if you're a big Horowitz fan because of Fight Back, you're like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah, he needs like a JJ Bittenbinder style resurgence. We just need to stand up. Ken, maybe you can work in a good David
I'll work
Horowitz.
on it. Because there's a really shitty conservative grifter named David Horowitz that's a different David Horowitz. And it's made it really hard for me to find stuff on the good David Horowitz.
This is like the Matt Walsh thing all over again. I was like, the dude from Veep and Upright Citizens is doing a podcast?
Yeah.
No, he is not.
Nope, he certainly is not.
So there was a Diff'rent Strokes episode on that night, but unfortunately it's a Sam episode.
Yeah.
So I probably would have turned that on and been like sorely disappointed.
Unless it's the Sam Gets Kidnapped episode.
I know. And isn't it terrible that that's the one everybody likes of the Sam episode?
Well, because it has the guy going, I will kill your family, Sam. I will kill them. Like, you didn't see that on.
I remember as a kid watching that episode thinking, Sam's being written off the show?
Yep.
They're answering my letters.
They're going to kill him. My God. Oh. And there's Saturday Nightmares on USA as a double feature of And the Walls Came Tumbling Down with Barbie Benton, which I'd never heard of. And Deborah Rafflin in a movie called Last Video and Testament. Also never heard of this.
Wow. That does sound like that could be kind of good, though.
It does, yeah.
But then at 8:30, there's a Double Trouble, but it's an Aunt Margot episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Season 2 was rough, man. The Funny Boys were good. But I don't know, man. Like, I would much prefer the Donnelly Rhodes first season to everything that happened in New York, even with the addition of Anne Marie Johnson.
I preferred New York, but just because it had more of a new wave sensibility. And the best two episodes are the Christmas one where Professor Yakamura, was that his name? Their fashion professor is like the Grinch and comes to their Christmas night. And the one where Natalie Green herself, Mindy Cohn guest stars and wants to be a stand-up comedian, and they take her to open mic nights and she becomes a stand-up comedian. That one's like really just burned into my heart. I've talked to Jim Vallely, one of the Funny Boys. Yeah. And so hopefully he'll be on the show in the future.
No, I hope so.
But yeah, the show itself was a better show first season, but the second season has like more positive memories in my heart.
Interesting. So what's funny is, I remember watching those episodes and they aired so much and then rewatching them on VHS. Like when the torrent scene happened, that was one of the first things I sought out. And I remember not knowing from the dance episode that like Queen's Staying Power was a real song. I was like, this is some silly hokey ass thing for the TV show. And then my mind was blown when I think it was only like 5 years ago, I learned, I was like, wait, Freddie Mercury wrote and performed that?
Yeah.
Like, not on the show version, but I was like, that's a real song?
Oh, yeah.
Let alone a Queen song on the same album that Under Pressure is on?
Yeah, it's nuts. Like, I felt that way about Fat Bottom Girls and My Bicycle. When I found out the biggest pop hit in the Philippines for years was My Bicycle by Queen.
Wow.
Don't know why.
And every time I listen to that, we know the hook, but then you get to the middle where he's got some strong thoughts about Star Wars and Jaws.
He certainly does.
Ready.
He certainly does. Was an opinionated man and wasn't afraid to share them.
But could you imagine that in a current song? No. Like if Taylor Swift just had a breakdown and was like, look, I think this Twilight thing's overrated.
Yeah.
And the Hunger Games, meh.
People would love it. People would go nuts for that. And I think all those Double Trouble episodes in the torrents were all from the USA Network reruns, just like It's Your Move.
There's a few NBCs on the It's Your Move. And I remember on the end because that NBC announcer would, I just never forget the voiceover, like, and crazy things happen when Nell runs into Ray Parker Jr. Is he the ultimate joke buster?
Tonight on Jennifer Slept Here.
Yeah. Oh man, that show I loved as a kid with the fake Jacoby from the first episode of Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jillian, I'd watch in anything.
But Mickey Splain's Mike Hammer was on, which I actually watched in preparation for this. I thought that show took place in the 30s. I was not aware.
It's contemporary.
It was contemporary, yet he acts like he's in the 30s.
Yeah. That was the kind of take on the show, was that he was like an anachronistic man out of time kind of thing.
Okay.
Which they didn't, but isn't a comedy. Like they didn't play it for laughs. Like it would make sense if it was like a Tommy Sledge kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was just like, no, this is 1955. Mickey Splain's Mike Hammer. And in this particular episode, there's like an all-girl rock band with Jan Smithers. Casey Kasem's a guest star. Like, it's ridiculous.
Casey Kasem is trying very hard not to sound like Casey Kasem in this episode.
Yes. It doesn't work.
It does not work. But the Love Boat episode, I actually watched in preparation for this. We tried watching all of the Love Boat. We made it to like season 3. And when it became all about, when there was good gopher fantasy sequences,
no.
I could accept Jimmy J.J. Walker as like a ghost, like haunting his ex-wife. Like that, or his widow, that I could accept. But the gopher fantasy sequences, no.
Yeah, Vincent Price, actual magician.
Yes.
That was a good episode.
Yes, there's one where Scatman Carruthers is teaching Julie and everyone how to ham bone. That maybe hasn't aged that well.
No.
But I recommend watching it. But this episode, you're never going to believe this, Ken. A man named Leslie, played by Conrad Bain, and Shelley, played by Vic Tayback. They think that they think the other one is a woman, so they're meeting to go on a cruise for their first date, and they find out they're both men, and then compete for the affections of another woman, and at the end end up becoming friends. It was actually a pretty solid episode with a meet cute misunderstanding.
And I kind of wish Conrad Bain never took advantage of being an identical twin, and his
That's right.
twin, which I think his name's like Gay Bain. It's something like that. He was in an episode of SCTV where he played Hank Bain, the fictional Conrad Bain identical twin. But I'm like, oh, that really you could have really thrown another loop in here if then you put the twin in too.
Well, and they didn't do on that one episode of Diff'rent Strokes. Can I free up memory in my brain and defrag it for new information? Because I'm thinking about the episode where it's the German aunt and Conrad plays the German aunt, and then Dana Plato plays the cousin, the boy. Why couldn't Conrad pull a Linda Hamilton and just give his twin like some work for one thing?
Because that was like, we're trying to keep them here by giving them a challenging dual role.
Yes. Dana Plato, we met actually at a video convention. My friends and I decided to go to VSDA in Vegas one year. And that's when she was promoting the Diff'rent Strokes, the softcore.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That she
Post
did.
Night Trap.
My friend Brendan, may he rest in peace, proposed marriage to her. And she was actually so sweet. And it talked like Dana Plato didn't have a huge line, but talked to us for like half an hour. And we could not have been nicer.
She seemed very sweet. Like, even though all the problems that she had, every interview I've ever seen with her, everyone I've ever talked to who worked with her was like, she was just like a very nice girl.
Yeah, she was exceptionally nice. Very tragic how things ended for her. That was the same VSDA where Jennifer Tilly was there, fresh off the Oscar nom for Bullets Over Broadway, and seemed a little offended that I wanted to talk about Moving Violations.
Moving Violations is her best role. She's a rocket scientist.
That movie is so good. I've watched that movie in driver's ed and traffic school twice.
And the thing that I always blow people's minds with that movie is it's set in the future.
I remember. Okay, I heard that on this very podcast.
Yeah, it's set in the future. They wrote and directed it. They said, we've set this. The idea was this is in like the late 90s, kind of like almost like a pre-RoboCop, obviously, but almost like that RoboCop future. That was the kind of thing they were going for. Why? No reason. There's no reason for that movie to be set in the future.
But I love that movie. The theme song.
Oh yeah,
stuck in my head.
Stacy Keach's brother,
everybody's sibling. Bill Murray's brother.
Yep, only film role that
and Jennifer Tilly
did. Yeah,
yeah. Big full page ad for Behringer's, which seems like the most. I still think of things. 49 years old. I still think of things as grown-up shows.
Yeah, this is a grown-up show,
and that looks like a grown-up show. Cover Up was on, sadly, post John Eric.
I think. Behringer's, I believe, was a Aaron Spelling show about a family who owned like a Bloomingdale's kind of department store.
Yes, that is correct.
Sorry, yes, you're saying post Eric Hexum Cover Up. Why did they bother?
I think they had to. Honestly, I think they had to finish out the season. This was a time, Ken, where people just tried things.
True.
They had the scripts. It was that weird pseudo James Bond format, cast, crew, producers. They probably figured it was cheaper to just make the show and try and package it overseas, license it, syndication, something, than to just pay a kill fee. But that was on against Finder of Lost Loves.
Yes.
Which I have tried watching and just cannot get into.
Well, it's that thing where it's like an anthology series that's not a horror series. And there's a reason there weren't a lot of those. Michael Gross is in this one, which is kind of funny. And in Cover Up, Martine Beswick is a guest star.
Oh, really?
I don't know if people would best know her, but I best know her from Dr. Jekyll, Sister Hyde, the Hammer horror film.
Michael Gross, the older I get when I rewatch Family Ties, like, he is the secret weapon of that show.
Oh, he makes every joke work on that show.
Yes.
Everything.
Especially 4 Rooms Ocean View, which I still think the writer of that should get money for inventing Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, he is such, he's got that Laurie Metcalf, John Larroquette, like just anything you give that guy makes it funny.
So
and he
good.
could do it like 10 different ways and they're all funny. Like Michael J. Fox is great on Family Ties, but
Yeah.
I would say a good 30% of his jokes would not hit without Michael Gross being there to play off it.
It's really weird. I mean, because people, when they talk about that show, mostly talk about Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Sometimes talk about the family dynamic. But that style of humor, which was very interesting in that it had classic sitcom jokes, but the joke would have a formula where it would be like truth, limit, absurd, punchline, payoff. That does not get enough credit
No.
in how they would structure that.
Michael Gross almost always would have the final joke because he would always have comment on the punchline. That
Yes.
would be the thing where it'd be like the ridiculous thing Michael J. Fox would say, and then you'd turn to Michael Gross and he'd be like, of course. Like it would always be like a button that would make it even funnier.
I just always think of the one or the 2 episodes with Gina Davis as their
Yes.
housekeeper, Karen, who doesn't work. But when this is a masterclass in comedy. If you watch the scene where Michael J. Fox and Michael Gross are dealing with everything that goes wrong in the kitchen that Karen fixed.
Yes.
The toast that pops out of the toaster, but Michael Gross with if this had been a Pop-Tart, we'd be dead by now.
Yeah. They're trying to cover for her because they like her so much, but she's so bad at her job. Yeah, it's great.
So good. That night on SNL is Ed Asner, but I believe it's a repeat
Yes.
because we're early in the year. And I would have felt a little like just flipping around. I mean, the Paper Chase TV series was on, Night Tracks, News That Rocked 84. Like there's some good stuff. I feel like this would have been a flipping night.
Yeah,
more
this is a
than
flipper
anything.
because it's also like your home. It's still Christmas vacation. You could stay up
Yeah.
kind of. You've gotten into staying up late, and there's mostly reruns on, and then some stuff they've just like thrown in to be like, I don't know, air this whenever. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would have probably woken up early the next morning because Kids Incorporated was on, and we were still in that first Jerry Sherrill
Yes.
season pre-Ryan Lambert. We went, so post-pandemic, Ken, the first thing we did to re-enter society was Jerry Sherrill, for his belated 50th birthday, did a night at a Beverly Hills jazz club.
Wow.
Like a one-man cabaret show. And we drove from Vegas to Beverly Hills and back in the same night to go see this. We were there masked, sitting like next to Jimmy Iovine, and then Dr. Phil strangely was there because Jerry Sherrill is now like a publicist who I guess worked for CBS and in TV production for a long time.
Weird. That's like
Yeah.
if you told me that was a dream you had, I'd be like, Glenn, that's weird.
That was a night, dude, with like 9 hours in the car,
Yeah.
round trip around it. But I love Kids Incorporated.
My favorite.
And thank God for the YouTuber
Yes.
who is like upscaling these into 4K, not full episodes.
No, just the
But
songs.
at least the music numbers.
But doing a good job too, like not just letting a program do, like they're putting time in.
yeah.
Making these look great.
And it's great to watch. I mean, you could see Fergie not sure she be dancing
Yep.
or selling it in some of these numbers. You could see the kid, Rasan,
Yep.
like really feeling it. Like I wanted to be a show kid so bad as a child.
I've talked about it many times, but how bad I wanted to be Ryan Lambert on that show.
Yeah.
And one of the
It was
most
so cool.
surreal moments of my life is he's become a friend, which is hilarious. Is I was in Colorado when I was out to dinner with Ryan and Andre Gower and Andre's sister. And we're in this restaurant and I forget what song it was. It was an 80s song playing. And Lambert's kind of listened to it. He goes, I'm like 90% sure I did this on Kids Incorporated. And without even thinking, I went, you know what, Ryan? I'm 100% sure you did. And then Andre like pulled it up on YouTube, like looking at him. And I'm like, how is this real life? Why? I can't believe this is happening.
Did you see there's the video from like the Rockin' In 86 or 87 special where they're doing Wild Wild Life.
Yeah.
And the comments are all like, it's really nice to see teenagers singing about, cocaine addiction.
Yes. I always love to see the lyrical changes they'd make them do on some songs.
like toning down Olivia Newton-John's Physical or
Yep.
the Pointer Sisters, I'm So Excited.
Yep. There's a ton. Almost every song has one. And they won't always be the obvious sexual reference. It'll be whatever the 60-year-old man who produced that show thought was a sexual reference. So some of them will get through, and then some of them, which aren't even dirty, will get changed and then make them sound dirty.
I will say Fergie as a child she sings a version of John Waite's Change, which I think was originally done by Spider in Canada.
Yep. Written by
I would put
Holly
up there,
Knight, who I've had on the show.
Yeah. I would say, I think Fergie actually did the definitive version of Change because she is feeling that song with earnestness. And Renee Sands does a really, really good version of Tracy Ullman's They Don't Know About Us.
Yes, I love Renee Sands. I really like that Wild Orchid group that they had for a while.
Yes.
And Renee Sands is from Worcester, Mass. And I believe, as best I can tell, moved back here after the Wild Orchid thing. I have not been able to find her.
No, she has retreated from public life.
Very much wanted to talk to her and have her on the show, and no luck. She's
I didn't meet Fergie in the Wild Orchid days. I was in a band in the late 90s, as we all were, and we actually played a show in Hollywood. I guess we got booked at like the right club because it's the club where it was trendy and people went there. So wow. I met Danielle Fishel, who was there with Lance Bass that night, and they were fighting. And now we can understand why that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But met like Fergie and Allison Hannigan, and people were just hanging out. Like, it was really cool. But I remember later talking to a bandmate, like just a few years ago, I was like, was it Fergie we met from Wild Orchid? And she was like, oh yeah. Yeah, that was Fergie, who's very, very short.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, it's that thing that Hexum set the bar for you.
Yeah. I wish I'd put two and two together. I didn't know she was on Kids Incorporated because that's all I would have talked to her about.
When we were like Sarah Ferguson, people were like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, Kids Incorporated, I don't think we'll ever get an official release of that, but that's like one of our, like that YouTube channel is one of our main, every time something new is posted, we will absolutely watch it. And I love when they do the big ending with the cha-cha-cha.
Yeah. Yes. If you had told me that Kids Incorporated was set in the future, 100% buy it. Like, it feels like some sort of weird, like post-apocalyptic, all the adults died. And they're like,
except for Florence Henderson, who's guesting.
Yeah. Or sometimes there's
Riley.
a leprechaun. Played by the kid who played John, what's his name, who was Isaac in Children of the Corn, who I've had on the show, and I feel bad I can't remember his last name, John something. Super nice dude. And is terrifying as that leprechaun. That is maybe more terrifying than Isaac.
There are some weird ass episodes of Kids Incorporated. And then they would have the, not original songs, they would have the demos that they got on the cheap that like were just in a pile that the publishing company probably made them take to like clear the rights to a hit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I have the two albums. Do you have the two albums? The Israeli.
I have the MP3s of them, but but I don't have the actual Actually, I think I might have one of the records, but yes, that's why I recommend, Ken, if you've not heard the band Timbirici and you like Kids Incorporated, Timbirici is like a mix of Kids Incorporated and Menudo.
Okay.
So the early stuff, they're really young doing covers of like Mickey in Spanish. But when you get to there's literally an album called like Rock Show. When you get to that era, like that is like, again, I wanted to learn Spanish to appreciate this music more because there's some bops in there. There's stuff that, and part of what I will say, I'm sure you've been through this journey as well. I loved when Top of the Pops went online, the archive, because you discover stuff that were hits in Europe that were not hits over here, like the music of Marilyn or Blancmange or others that I'd never heard.
Or
in
the weird
US.
novelty hits that were number one there, and you're like, what?
Oh, that song about grandma.
Yep.
Everybody loves that song about grandma. And they love He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, they go ape shit for that song.
The Christmas number one every year for like this, all through the 70s, 80s, is always like a comedian and a washed up singer, or like from the previous generation doing a weird cover. And you're like, this is like an alternate reality that I didn't know existed.
Yes. Or like Star Trekkin'.
Yes.
Or some of those other ones. So or Grange Hill, the British Degrassi.
Yes.
That had Just Say No, which is really slaps. But once you get done with that and you need new music from the era you loved, I recommend the music of Spain or Mexico because there's a lot of hits that you're just like, oh, this sounds like the music I love. It's just in a different language.
I went that way with Italo disco. for a while.
Yeah, there you go.
And it found some real great stuff and some terrible stuff. But the Mexican stuff went through via the wrestler movies. So the El Santo, in Sábado Gigante footage of songs where I'll be like, wow, this is pretty amazing.
That Sunday I would have been bummed. I would have tuned into Barefoot in the Park and then realized it wasn't the HBO on stage version with Bess Armstrong. That was probably also core childhood crush.
Yes.
For me.
For me, it was her in Second Sight as a nun.
Oh,
because
Bess Armstrong. Yeah.
I saw her in person because they filmed it here.
I forgot you're like a big Second Sight stan. But Bess Armstrong, Barefoot in the Park, that character is very horny.
Oh, yes.
So when I saw that at like 6 or 7, that was the first time I had those sort of feelings.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't know why. You're like, Bess, what are you doing?
I didn't know why. But then even later in like my so-called life and stuff, I'm like, oh, Angela's mom, Mrs. Chase, is kind of hot.
Yeah. Oh, I even thought that then. And like now when I watch it, I'm like even more so.
Yeah, right.
Which is the right thing to have as an adult.
And I have that thing for that blonde. Like I'll see like Catherine Hicks and something. I'm like, Catherine Hicks is looking good.
Oh yeah, her in Child's Play.
Yeah, sure. But Peggy Sue Got Married when she's like coked up and wants to like get it on with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Or Tucker's Witch, was that her? Yeah.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to check that out. But no, I love and Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home. Man, she knows a lot about whales. But Fame was on that day. I tried watching Fame. I didn't know that the songs, because I love the song High Fidelity from the TV version of Fame. I didn't know that the songs have like nothing to do with the plot.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, they're completely cut in like out of nowhere.
That was very disappointing.
It feels like they made it so you could cut the songs out and still sell the movie places.
Yeah. And it's weird now when you learn about Fame, everybody in the cast really felt like Debbie Allen was a bit of an egomaniac.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah.
I thought that as a kid when she did, I can't remember what the special was, where she recreated Michael Jackson's Motown 25 performance to Billie Jean.
Yes.
And I was like, Debbie Allen is very talented. I do not want to take anything away from her accomplishments, but it does seem like maybe she was going through a bit of a phase.
There's a real
she
look
wanted
at
the spotlight.
Me quality.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Yeah. Silver Spoons on Sunday at 7. Once Bateman left, we were there for Alfonso.
There is some interesting episodes. So the one I always talk about is the one with Suzanne Snyder, and she's a high school girl that gets pregnant. And it's her and Ricky have to do that high school thing where you pretend to be married. So you have to do a budget and stuff. And they would throw like, wrenches at them to make the thing harder. So they like pull things out of a hat and it's like, oh, you're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. And she's like, what? And then she really is. And it's amazing.
Okay. That's going on the list. I always think about the episode where Rick decides to go punk and then they try and do the dine and dash and he gets caught. And I will still reference that anytime a friend of mine even jokes about leaving a restaurant without paying. And I'm like, I saw Silver Spoons, man. You don't do that shit.
You don't want to disappoint Joel Higgins.
Yeah. He seemed, every time I see him in something else, I'm just like, it is not the same character.
No,
at all. He
is an actor I find incredibly unlikable in everything but Silver Spoons.
Yes. I'm with you, dude. And as a kid, did you have trouble with that idea that these are actors and not characters? I think Mark Hamill, for people my age, was probably the first one.
Sure.
When he would show up in something and not be Luke.
Yeah. Here's the weirdest one. Mine was Maureen Stapleton. Because I saw her in the Jack and the Beanstalk Fairy Tale Theater. And it was her and oh my God. He's in A Long Kiss Goodbye.
Samuel L. Jackson?
No, I mean Long Kiss Goodnight.
Oh.
The Elliot Gould.
Oh, okay.
So they're the giant couple. And whenever I would see either of them in anything without the other one, even though it's the only thing they did together, like I, for some reason was like, where's Elliot Gould? Where's Gene Stapleton? My parents would be like, what are you talking about? Like all in the family would be on and be like, who's this guy? Where's Elliot Gould?
Okay. I'm going to tell you two things that I still believe to this day. I don't care what you tell me. Captain Lou Albano is Cyndi Lauper's father.
Yep.
You can't disprove me. And I still believe Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton are married.
Yeah, I think they're still married to this day. And both those things are true. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you can't train your brain to not.
And Danny Aiello was Madonna's father.
Wait a second. Speaking of which, you've heard the song, right? You've heard Danny Aiello's response song to Papa Don't Preach. Papa just wants what's best for you.
What's best for you,
Yeah. There's a scene in that video where Danny Aiello is singing, Papa wants what's best for you, where he goes from angrily punching a heavy bag to breaking down crying and hugging the heavy bag.
That's what Papas do. If you could cut that together with his death scene and the stuff, you would have a real gem of a video.
Oh my God. Star Search was on that night, notable because Charo is the guest.
Yep.
We went and saw Charo in Las Vegas last year. She sang like 3 songs and then played flamenco guitar, and the show was over in 45 minutes, and that was perfect.
She's even at her age, an unbelievable classical flamenco guitar player.
Absolutely. And she still looks really, really good. And say this to everyone. If there's anyone you knew who they were as a child and they are still performing live, that clock is ticking.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And go see them while you still can. Now, Wayne Newton, his voice not 100% there. Rich Little, angry and not funny, but at least I can say I did it.
And also probably what he was like before.
Probably who he always has been.
Yes.
They just really showed us that they were like, Rich, do your bit. And okay, now I don't want to know what you think about is going on in the Middle East.
I'm Richard Nixon and I actually wasn't a bad guy. I was right the whole time.
The Ace Awards were on that night. And I would love to see what was up for an Ace Award.
This would have been one of the first
for the
ones.
year 1984.
I think the first one was maybe 82. I feel like when it came to Ace Awards, just Fraggle Rock won everything every year for like 10 years.
Shelley Duvall.
Yep. Shelley Duvall. And then some USA Network original movie.
Yeah. This was a weird Sunday, man. Like there wasn't a lot in prime time. What jumps out on you with the rest of this?
Crazy Like a Fox is a show that I wanted to revisit. I've really liked Jack Warden because of Used Cars. And so I want to like him in other things, but he never is as great in that. But I'd be curious to revisit this show. This one, Rue McClanahan's in this episode. Road Warriors making its network premiere. So like I 100% did watch this then. I'd seen it in theaters and I would have been psyched to be able to watch the Road Warrior on cable. I mean, on non-cable.
Yeah. The OG.
Yeah. So I definitely would watch that, but yeah, it was like a movie night. It was a night they would dump movies.
I love that Jack Warden gets top billing in Crazy Like a Fox. And as a kid, the other thing I started doing, it's a form of compression to save space. In my head, Jack Warden and the guy from Heart to Heart were the same person.
Yeah.
Kind of like visual memory. You could put 2 photos up next to each other. I couldn't tell you who was John Landis and who was Leonard Maltin. Like to conserve space, they're just the same person.
Jack Warden and Robert Loggia did that to me.
Yeah.
And his co-star on Crazy Like a Fox to this day, and I'm looking at a picture of him right now, I'm like, yeah, that's Billy Crystal. Crazy Like a Fox starred Robert Loggia and Billy Crystal, right?
But there was a lot of that. There were a lot of those. I'm trying to think of other examples where it's like, I literally would be like, oh, that's TV's Billy Crystal. Yeah. Like there's like the TV bootleg version of the famous actor. I feel like there has been at least one of those a year working in Hollywood for the history of television.
Oh yeah. Like the other famous one is oh my God, from Fernwood Tonight.
Martin Mull?
No.
I know what you're talking about.
Why can't I remember his name? I've met him before.
I know. Now
he's passed away.
Fred Willard. Ward.
So like Fred Willard,
not Ward.
Fred Willard and Ward would be very confusing. That would be like,
yeah, I know. So similar.
People doing, Fred Willard and the guy who was Herb on WKRP.
Yes.
Whose name I can't remember. He's Father Hargis on Just the 10 of Us.
And the other one that I'm sure everyone of an age has is it's like Keith David or David Keith.
Yes.
Like for $1 million, I'm just basically tossing a coin at that point.
Yes. Bill Paxton, Bill Pullman.
Yes. But yeah, the Ace Awards, that would have been a trip to watch that night. And then Brothers was on later.
Yes.
A show that as a child, I was like, I feel like I should get this more, but this is over my head.
It was always weird. The handful of original shows on HBO and Showtime that were like especially Brothers, which was a multicam sitcom on video, looked like sitcom, but they would swear and there would be inappropriate stuff, and it felt so weird.
So weird. And then this was the era when Bizarre was on Showtime also. So Super Dave, the early days of Super Dave.
That's what Super Dave spun off of. And Bizarre also had weird nudity sometimes.
Yes. And then, again, not understanding people can have the same name, I would have tuned into George Michael's Sports Machine and been sorely disappointed.
I would love it. How was there not an SNL sketch in 1985 with George Michael's Sports Machine? Like a really bad someone being George Michael.
Oh,
yeah.
That's peak like Brad Hall years.
Oh, yeah. Look at, he's a football player. It's been like nothing. It'd be so terrible.
It would be amazing. What are we on next?
Monday.
So I guess Monday. When Phil Donahue had his first live show that morning.
Yeah.
National. Oh my God. I loved Phil Donahue as a kid. When it was the rare episode that was something that appealed to me or wasn't just
like Marilyn Manson was on.
Well, or Two Live Crew. I'll never forget the Two Live Crew episode.
Yeah.
Luther Campbell, they were performing The Funk Shop and he wasn't censoring everything. And a lot of those references were going over Phil's head. Oh, that was, I ordered the transcript of that episode as a child.
Please tell me you still have it.
No, I wish. And you know what? When I signed up for CompuServe had those transcripts for free. And this is the most, I wish there's got to be an archive of the Phil Donahue transcript.
There has to be. Because people forget like Oprah and Phil Donahue and those shows were live and people would call in. Like you could call in and get on the air. Like that's insanity.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then, you know, it's not a Black Mirror episode. There literally was a game show called Anything for Money.
Yep. Speaking of RoboCop.
Yes. And I just remember a guy eating flowers.
Yeah.
That's the one episode I remember.
Yeah. It was not as titillating as you would expect. I remember a lot of like people trying to blow things across things with straws.
Yeah.
I was like, this is much more boring than I thought. Fraggle Rock is on all the time. And I bet you I watched every airing of it.
This is back when Showtime had it.
HBO.
HBO, that's right.
But then you got
Showtime had Shelley Duvall.
They had Fairy Tale Theater and HBO had Fraggle Rock and Brain Games, which I friggin' love.
Do you remember that commercial for the Fraggle Rock videotapes?
I love Fraggles. Yep. Fraggles are really great.
For some reason, 80s Commercial Vault, God bless him, he's doing the Lord's work. Every children's recording from the late 80s has that Fraggle Rock commercial.
Yep.
And then there was the weird one from before that where somebody like owned a printing press and was like, we could put recipes on printed cards and make people subscribe to them. But then we can also have a version that has animals on it.
Yep. I had
and that kid is so attached.
I had that and the Sweet Pickles bus.
Yes.
Smart moms know how kids' minds grow. Sweet Pickles. And it didn't get delivered in the bus with someone dressed as a duck. So I was so disappointed.
Oh my God. Like, I think about this. We brought Clearly Canadian back.
Yeah.
Bum Equipment is now like an energy drink.
Yep.
Slice is back as a probiotic
LA Gear
soda.
is a Walmart exclusive.
Yes. I wonder, can you just buy like the trademark to failed products?
You can. Walmart did that also for LA Gear and Airwalk.
Wow. Yeah, Airwalk was always cool. LA Gear, I feel like, was a try-hard brand.
Yeah. Their commercials were great.
They just kind of knew. They did have great.
They had that whole run of commercials that ended with the line, "It wasn't a fantasy." It would just be like this whole like LA Gear, and then it just like, it wasn't a fantasy. I was like, okay, I didn't think it was, but thank you for for clarifying.
Does someone still have a trademark to Hypercolor? Because I want to look into that.
I wonder. but it's probably too new. I bet you they do. I'm trying to think of like Nickelodeon, like the rock and roller. That thing, it was like a skateboard with a seat on it.
I remember that.
Was in the weird blocks, the dual blocks that you could move. They would work with Legos. That one was always on.
Yes.
I have a thing that was advertised on Nickelodeon as a kid, and it's the Snap-a-Zoo. I don't know if you remember the Snap-a-Zoo.
No.
This is like a felt. Someone brought this back a couple years ago. I had this as a kid and I loved it. It's a 2-sided piece of felt with a bunch of buttons on it. And the thing is, you're supposed to be able to like configure it into all different kinds of animals. Like, it's a walrus, or like, it's a squid. It's really just the teddy bear and then an unsnapped teddy bear. Like those are the only
you can like hide your drugs in it.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. It's like, but the pitch was like, it's like Transformers, but a plushie.
Right. And kids, girls can like it, boys, like it's not violent. It's a Snap-a-Zoo. And it, it looks, this color scheme for the new one is pink and blue. It looks like that Wuzzle, the one that was like a
it does,
but the other one was like a navy blue and a red, and it was so 80s looking. And the other thing is the Tangle. The Tangle was that weird like sculpture, that moving sculpture that was on the Facts of Life.
Yes, I've watched that episode but 2 weeks ago, I think. I have one
over our heads. I have one back here, an original Tangle, big, huge one. And it was like an expensive pop art moving sculpture. This guy designed it as that. And then a toy company, I think Mattel, bought it as Tangle Junior, and they would make it like sort of like a toy. And then it became really popular with people who treat kids with autism. Because it's kind of like a fidget spinner. And then it's since gone out of, I don't know who owns it now, but I like went down this rabbit hole years ago of the Tangle Junior because I found an original one and I have it back there.
That's incredible. I just want to know, where can I sign up for the class action lawsuit against the pogo ball and the commercial that has people hopping over fences and getting like, 10 feet of air.
Those kids weighed 4 pounds. I will say
that thing went.
One of my biggest adult disappointments is they haven't made a pogo ball strong enough to hold me. And I've tried. I loved pogo ball. I pogo balled all goddamn day.
What's the most, did you ever get over like 12 inches of air on that thing?
No, probably not 12. I definitely did like a basketball dunk with one.
Okay.
But it was like, there was some cheat. It was a little lower, and but I had 2 or 3 pogo balls because pogo balls were kind of a flop, and so Toys R Us and KB Toys here, they were always in clearance, and there were especially the second and third wave ones, which actually were the coolest colorways. So I had a bunch of pogo balls. Loved them.
I loved the Toys R Us clearance aisle, and I would get like hit sticks on hit sticks, which like worked terribly.
Awful.
Like the gotcha paintball gun that would jam the second time you shot it. Yeah.
Spytek.
I remember getting a Vanilla Ice doll. Spytek. I think one year, like in the early 2000s, we picked up a bunch of hit clips.
Oh yeah.
Like on clearance.
Yep. Manglore was always there. Crystar, Power Lord.
I remember it wouldn't even have like it would have like the bright orange, or then if they really wanted to get rid of it would have the fuchsia pink price tag.
Yeah, or the one that looked like someone hand wrote it, even though it was printed, because then you're like, oh, this is really cheap.
And sometimes they would put the returns back out there, it was great. Okay, so looking at primetime, TV's bloopers and practical jokes was on.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Whelchel.
Yes.
Had a practical joke.
Playing the practical joke on Merv Griffin and Lisa Whelchel. I don't remember this Lisa Whelchel one. But here's what I'm most interested in this. Bloopers from Branded with Chuck Connors. So I imagine every Chuck Connors blooper is him saying a racial slur. I don't know if that's true, but I just have to imagine that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I did watch, based, I believe, on your podcast. I did watch the one, the head of the class one.
Oh yeah.
With the one on Dan Schneider.
Yes, where they go to
Which
the
actually
kids'
is
hospital.
very funny.
It's very funny, and he freaks out. He freaks.
There was your sign that maybe he's not the nice guy.
Yeah. That one. That one's one of the ones I'm like surprised aired, because he does. That is one of the worst I've seen someone come across on those.
Yeah, well, it's really good though. It's really well done.
It is very well done.
It's like a precursor to Punk'd, like what they were doing.
Much bigger budget too. Like they made a full-sized fake hospital. A fully abandoned hospital. They staffed the whole hospital.
Yeah, it's really impressive. It's very good. But you watch a lot of the stuff on there, and it's very elaborate.
Oh yeah,
it's silly. Yeah. Kate and Allie was on that night.
Love it.
Yeah,
for season
good.
1. I think this is season 2. It was the mid-season replacement the previous year. So this is the first full season. Ellie goes back to school. The Monday night CBS is like just bulletproof for me, with Kate and Allie, Newhart, like amazing.
That was a great era. Cagney and Lacey, which I was always stoked when Martin Cove would show up.
Oh yeah. Basically just playing Martin Cove, the only thing he can do.
I mean, hey, when you got something that works. On Merv Griffin that night, there was Mary Lou Henner, and I bet you she remembers everything about that.
Absolutely. There's also a pageant, Mrs. Woman of the World. And are you aware of the Mrs. pageants?
No, tell me about the Mrs. pageant.
These were for married women.
Okay.
So they made a few of them. There was Mrs. America, and this is Mrs. Woman of the World. This was their competition for Miss Universe. This is from Honolulu.
Okay.
It's hosted by Richard Dawson. So right there,
wow.
You got Killian hosting, and guest singers Don Ho. The Mrs. Women of the World pageants, there's a bunch online. They are amazing because these women are probably 25. And they're married, but they seem 50 because it's like in the mid 80s, and they make their own cost. Like it's this like housewife spin on a pageant, and it's real weird, and they never caught on, but they tried it for years.
That is amazing. I'm going to have to check that out. I definitely would not have watched the Thornbirds that night. That seems like I'm still not old enough to watch the Thornbirds.
No, and it seems like you'll get in trouble for watching it. Like it seems too horny to watch, even as an adult man. Someone will find out and you'll get in trouble.
Oh, it's like, what's the one with Phoebe Cates?
Oh, Lace.
Yeah, like that.
Which one of you bitches is my mother?
I feel like my parents would have like unplugged. I had a TV in my room, like a black and white TV in my room at the time. And I remember if I got in real trouble, they would unplug the TV and take it out of my room.
Yeah, Lace would have done that. You would have been, would have been a punishment. There's a terrible looking movie called A Reason to Live, starring Peter Fonda, Ricky Schroeder, and Deidre Hall. And it says, a father on the brink of suicide, a son racing against time to save him. So Peter Fonda's suicidal and Ricky Schroeder is trying to talk him out of killing himself. This is not a movie.
I watched on your recommendation that Jeffrey Tambor cocaine addiction film. Yeah, that was shockingly heavy. I originally was like, oh, Ken's talking about this is going to be a laugh riot for how bad it is.
No. They went real heavy. This one has Tracy Gold in it. Shockingly. As Ellen. But this sounds like, if you pitched that, I feel like people would be like, who would want to watch that?
I feel like networks, and this is a funny thing to say, I feel like back then networks felt like they had a social responsibility.
Yes, but if you were like, Ricky Schroeder talks someone out of committing suicide, immediately you're like, no. I will not.
I think there was probably the original pitch. The original pitch was probably like Paul Haggis or someone was like, and then he does it at the end anyhow. And then network was like, no,
or someone
it has to end.
Okay, guys, silver spoons, but when he finds out Ricky Schroeder's his kid, he kills himself. They'd be like, love it. And then like they'll be like, look, we got some notes. We can't quite do it that way, but maybe Ricky Schroeder talks him out of it. And they're like, I guess that's it's not really my original vision, but I guess.
I mean, there were a lot. It's actually crazy now to think about it. The TV movie is a lost art.
Yes.
Now we get stuff that couldn't sell. It's like streamers picking up stuff just for content. But this idea, there was that one where like Jason Bateman's parents are like in the witness protection program or spies and disappear.
Yep. And he becomes a spy.
I mean, there were elaborate productions back in the 80s for things that aired once, never were released on video. Society has forgotten them completely. They're not even on
the streamers,
bootleg sites. I think Gary Coleman is an arsonist. At least someone uploaded that to YouTube.
So one of the problems, because I've always said this, like all these made-for-TV movies, when we were talking about this vision to the future where they could all be streaming.
Yeah.
Many of them were independent productions. So a lot of these exploitation kind of director and studios kind of rebranded in the mid to late 70s when drive-ins started to dry up and would basically pitch TV movies. And which is, if you look at the subject matter, they're all pretty much exploitation movies about like teenage runaways and rapists and murderers or horror movies or whatever, but just without, the stuff that you couldn't air on TV. And it's such a weird evolution of these exploitation movies and made for TV movies because they're like, we don't have a lot of money. What can we make fast and make salacious and people will watch it, but also chaste. And it's very weird.
And it's weird. I remember being so angry when Peacock launched because I was like, where's High School USA?
Yeah.
Where's Dance Till Dawn?
Yeah.
Because I think NBC owned, maybe Dance Till Dawn
they owned Dance Till Dawn, Crash Course.
Where they would just get all their stars together.
Contractually
and make
obligated.
Like a little teen comedy that was so forgettable.
The hardest one to find, and I still haven't found it, Class Cruise. Brooke Theiss
I have
is
not
in
seen
it.
Class Cruise.
It was one of the last of those movies. I've not been able to find it. I saw it when it aired because I had a huge Brooke Theiss crush.
Didn't we all?
It's difficult to find.
Disney was okay for a while. They had that direct club because you can get like Double Switch on DVD.
Yep.
You can get somewhere. I saw someone had a copy of Exiled, the ones where it was like the backdoor pilot for the troubled kids on an island.
There's
like
one.
Corey Feldman's in it, strangely.
Speaking of Ryan Lambert, he plays a bully in one, and it was his favorite thing he did. I can't think of the name of it, but I got him a copy of that.
Oh. Wait, I know what you're talking about because I think I've seen this.
Yes, he didn't have one, and I got him one, which is super weird.
I probably saw your rip of that.
Maybe.
Like, there's probably a lot, Ken. If we were to compare, there's probably a lot in my archive. Probably a few things I have that, For a while, I was posting on Craigslist looking for VHS tapes, and I would go meet just like random people in the parking lot of the Stonestown Mall and pick up this. And this one dude just like taped every award show and strangely Friday night videos.
Oh, nice. That's a weird trajectory.
A ton of Friday night videos.
In the 90s when they tried to go fully urban, but it was still hosted by Tom Kenny.
Yes. It was a weird time. I have a lot of the era, and I'm responsible for digitizing a lot of the era where it's like Tempest Bledsoe like hosted many episodes
because they shot in New York.
Random comedians a lot of the time. I think I had one with the Judy Tenuta, Emo Phillips.
Yep. I had my favorite Friday Night Videos story is I digitized a bunch, and I digitized one with Barry Sobel hosting. And I know Barry, and I texted Barry. I was like, hey, I got a Friday Night Videos you hosted. And he's like, oh, is it the one with me and Jason Bateman? And I went, no, it's you and Stoney Jackson. And he went, I don't need that.
I think I have the Bateman one. I'm Facebook friends with Barry Sobel. Barry was living in San Francisco, and Barry one time contacted me. He's like, I got a ton of VHS tapes if you want them.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. I hate that I know still, like, I know his opener and closer by heart. The closer maybe hasn't aged so well. The opener's aged slightly less poorly.
He was hanging
I was a Barry Sobel
He was hanging around Boston for a while when I was hosting my weekly show, and he would come do my show, which was like amazing to me. And he had new stuff that was hilarious. Like my wife and I still quote some of the new stuff that he did. And it was like,
that's awesome.
I don't even remember the premise of this, but it was him just saying, it was like, oh, I don't have time for setup, so just here's a bunch of punchlines was like the thing. And one of them was I invented breakfast. And then he goes, fuck the mailman, give him $10. It was like it was so funny. So we still quote those.
That's amazing.
Breakfast idea. And he had a whole bit about like people who ask themselves rhetorical questions when you ask them a question you want an answer for. So like they're like, oh, how was that movie? And they're like, well, would I have made that movie with my money? No. Like, and you're like, what? It was very funny.
He is funny. He is very funny. And a lot of people don't know that, didn't he write most of the Tom Hanks material in Punch? I know Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
That's where their friendship started. They're still friends. Yeah. I think the mistake was I saw a video of him in the early 2000s and he was still opening with I'm Not the Beastie Boys or Run DMC. He was still using that as his opener.
It didn't translate, but
But I mean, to people of our age, gold.
You know what he got me is the original demo of No on 15 from Revenge of the Nerds 2.
Oh shit.
Was written, that whole movie was kind of ghost written by Ed Solomon. And
really?
Him and Ed Solomon did the demo. I have it somewhere.
I will watch that scene. Actually, look, there's a lot of regrettable stuff from the Revenge of the Nerds movies. I would argue that the two musical sequences are perhaps what is aged best.
Yes, I would agree. In the improv stuff, like it's the original script for Revenge of the Nerds is offensive garbage, and all the funny stuff in that movie is improv. All of it. It like every line, like every booger line, like that is all stuff they made up on the way. Cause they were like, I hate this script. And Curtis Armstrong has a quote where he was like, I think he got the script when he had just done like Clan of the Cave Bear or whatever, maybe the Quest for Fire, whichever the one he was in. And he goes, if you think I'm going to play a character called Booger, you go fuck yourself. And they were like, oh, we'll pay you this much. And he's like, I'm there. But they let him do whatever he wanted. So like the whole, like, is there a room for Hawaii? What do you want? That's all made up. They like just, that's not in the script. Everything Timothy Busfield does is completely made up. Like the scene where Poindexter gets a boner and he goes, ah!
Oh yeah.
That whole thing is Timothy Busfield and his brother first moved to LA. They were staying in a sleazy motel and the people next to them were like having sex all night. And he goes, and him and his brother kept making fun of the noises they would make. And the guy kept going, ah, so big, ah, so gentle. So he's just doing that. And like, it's very funny.
I remember pre-internet and then early days of the internet driving around to record stores. And there were two things that I would ask for to try and find. Like one, do you have that Are You Ready for the Sex Girls song?
Yep. Gleaming Spires.
The Gleaming Spires. That took a while to find. And then secondly, it was like, do you have the soundtrack to The Karate Kid? Like, because we wanted You're the Best. Yeah. And it's funny now that song is like everywhere and so huge, because I remember having to order an import of the soundtrack from like Germany for $50 back in like 1998 to get that song.
Oh, soundtracks were my holy grail. Like the 16 Candles soundtrack, which only came out as a promotional EP. 12-inch promotional EP. I remember I found that at a flea market in New Hampshire, like a rural New Hampshire. There was a flea market, like an indoor flea market. And in the corner was this guy named Archie who basically built his own little record store in the corner. Like it was like a standing booth, right? And he would have a little cooler with Moxies in it. And he wore overalls. He looked like Red Green and he would drink these Moxies. And it was like a record store. It was packed to the gills. And you were like, it's going to take me forever to look. They're like, there's not gonna be anything good in here. It's huge. Like, and I walked in and right away, the 16 Candles soundtrack was there. It was like amazing. $1. I was like, how did this get here? Amazing.
I miss that. And I remember even in the early 2000s, sometimes just going places to find things.
Yeah.
Pre-Discogs, just being able to order it for a price. I really miss that sense of adventure.
That's why I don't go on vacation anymore. There's no point.
I hear you. Yeah. The next morning, Tuesday morning on HBO, speaking of what you were talking about earlier, exploitation, Portrait of a Teenage Shoplifter.
Yep.
Is on HBO.
Yep. There's also
I would have turned that on before school.
Tuesday afternoon is an after-school special with a special appearance by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's called The Hero Who Couldn't Read. It's about a basketball player who can't read. Like, what?
Okay, so it was kind of a weird moment. I was watching old commercials with my wife and said, we don't hear about illiteracy anymore. Did we at least solve that? Did we cure illiteracy? And then we looked it up and it's like, nope.
They just gave
More
up.
of a problem now than ever.
It's worse.
They just gave up.
Because that was a plot too, like on Webster, where it's like, I can't read Webster. Papa Papadopoulos couldn't read.
Yeah.
And he's like, but Dad, you order off the menu and we go to run. He goes, I just ordered what you ordered.
Yes. Tootie's boyfriend in Facts of Life, Denise in summer school. Like, illiteracy was a huge problem.
Yeah. They just gave up. It's like acid rain.
Yeah.
Just threw it aside. We don't care anymore. We can't solve it.
Well, Denise had dyslexia. I feel like dyslexia, at least we learned to identify and get people to help.
Yes. And I learned about it from summer school. This girl's dyslexic.
Yeah. Do you know what's so weird about that movie? I have the screenplay to that film, and one of the same writers is just one of the guys.
Yep. Jeff Franklin.
Which I would argue, yes, aside from like 2 jokes, just one of the guys I think has actually aged remarkably.
Yeah, shockingly well. Yeah.
Shockingly. And I was watching the Chasing Amy documentary, which is really good and actually blew my mind. I don't want to spoil like the big crux of what happens later in it, but it was like, whoa. But I was like, someone should do a documentary about just one of the guys and the impact that has had, because it's a lot deeper than you think. But Jeff Franklin is obsessed with James Brown because in a cutscene from summer school, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag was a lesson.
Yeah.
That Shoop tried to teach.
Yeah. And then he went on to do the same year as summer school, created Full House.
I know, and never looked back.
Nope.
Also the school break special that afternoon, Welcome Home Jelly Bean.
Oh God, that one.
With Dana Hill.
That's rough.
That sounds heavy.
She plays developmentally.
I know.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah. We saw that. My wife and I were like, should we watch that? I was like, no, I think this is gonna.
It's exactly what you think it is. No need to see.
Although counter to that was Revenge of the Nerd, which I believe is Chris Barnes, Tanner from the Bad News Bears.
That is correct. Yes.
That's one of my early internet memories is someone had a website that was trying to find Chris Tanner or Chris Barnes.
Oh yes. I do recall that. that.
So
yeah. It was like, that was a weird time.
It was. You could just put up a web page and you were one of like 5 web pages in existence.
Yeah.
So if you were like us, you knew those sites.
I'm no Robbie Wrist from the kid video message board. This is like the late 90s, early 2000s. He would go on and post on there and it's bizarre.
Well, it was like Dean Cameron. Like I remember emailing Dean Cameron with questions about the Fast Times TV series in summer school. And there was a time when he wanted to talk about it and then he didn't want to talk about that shit for a long time.
Yeah.
And now he's back, now that he can basically make a living doing columns.
Of course.
Screening.
Of course.
Yeah. We offended him accidentally.
Oh no.
Because we went to a triple feature of summer school, ski school, and Rockula, which I'd never seen Rockula. Rockula
was fantastic.
Yeah. He signed our posters and he asked if we wanted a photo. And we were like, no, we're good. He just looked so like deflated.
Well, yeah, because he doesn't look the same and he probably feels bad about it. And that probably happens a lot, like with people who, when they had their heyday when they were like 20. I bet there are people who are like, no.
I mean, that's got to be weird.
Yeah. Of course.
I mean, it was nice enough.
Yeah.
But and it was cool. It was at the Draft House in San Francisco. Later that night, Three's a Crowd was on, and I watched that show to the bitter end because I love Three's Company so much.
Yeah. They had some success with Archie Bunker's Place, where a show ended, but they kept it going as a different show, which they tried to do with Golden Girls. They tried to do it with Three's Company. It's not a good idea. It's not going to work.
Because I think everybody, like Larry is in one episode.
Yeah.
But it was sort of weird. I get that at the end of Three's Company that Janet and Terry moved away. It just felt odd the disconnection. It wasn't like Jack moved. It was the same town.
It's like, why
still.
bother to have this be a show that's in the same universe and the same character? Because it's not.
Yeah.
But
in the UK, it worked.
Yes, it did, which is why they did it. Because they were like, but the UK, I mean, a season was 6 episodes, you know, like you could do a sequel series that wouldn't seem unusual in the UK because for years, every TV show was basically a miniseries. So every season was a sequel season. So if you change the premise a little bit for third series, it wasn't as weird. But Three's Company, like, that's just craziness.
And even I love Priscilla Barnes. She was actually my favorite of the third roommates on the show. But man, towards the end, like Three's Company was really showing its age.
Well, it's 1984, 85, and this is a 70s show. Like 150% a 70s show. And it felt like it. Like just like the Jeffersons did. The Jeffersons was on still in 1985. And Alice is on still in 1985.
Alice was on that night.
Yeah, and they feel so 70s. And it's extra weird because like after Three's a Crowd is Who's the Boss, first season of Who's the Boss. And Who's the Boss, this sounds stupid, but Who's the Boss felt very new and like very 1985 and like this is a new show. And you're watching this like, it was like a college kid at a high school party. You know what I mean? With Three's a Crowd. You were like, what are you doing here, man? Go away. It didn't fit.
Yeah. And for those keeping score, I did have a crush on Vicky because she reminded me of Bess Armstrong.
Of course, same haircut, similar smirk. She owned a restaurant in Burbank for years.
Oh, interesting.
Still might. No. I think
but Alice, I watched Alice until the end. And that was tough. We saw Linda Lavin do an evening of jazz 10 years ago in Hollywood.
She's bonkers.
And Liza Minnelli was in the audience.
Oh, wow. I can't imagine them talking. That would be very hilarious.
It was super weird. Sean Hayes was there because at the time he was doing the show with Linda as his mom. But and she performed the Alice theme song, which is really the reason why we showed up. Other people were there for Gypsy. I wanted the Alice theme.
There's an SCTV episode called Sweeps Week. And Andrea Martin plays Linda Lavin. And she plays her as like a complete psycho. And does this really weird impression where she's like, make sure you don't show my hands on the part I can't play on the piano. And then she like starts yelling at the director and it's Eugene Levy. And he's like, no, Linda, that's great. You know, we can't do another take. And she goes, it's your funeral. And then he's like, what does that mean? It's like the weirdest. Linda Lavin threatening someone is great.
Well, I mean, if you watch Alice, it's very apparent that she like demanded as part of her character, like Alice is going to get a lot of musical chances to sing and perform. But then she changed the theme song every year. And that was good. I argue season 4 was the best, the kicking myself for nothing lyrics. But if you watch the beginning of season 4, I can't remember if it's the first or second episode, over the end credits, there was a version of the Alice theme song they never played again where she's like riffing and scatting and moaning, and it's super weird.
Yeah.
And it's still there on the DVD release and the rips you see online. Like it's a one-time only version of the end credits with her just doing a little freestyle.
Yeah, we don't want that. You know who else would do that? Sybil Shepherd. Sybil Shepherd was all like, I want to sing in this episode. I'm a singer. People are like, okay. All right, Sybil.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to see.
Hey,
this.
Contractual obligations for star demands are a beautiful thing.
Show?
Night Shift was also on that night, and the first time I saw Night Shift was edited for TV.
It was this airing for me. This exact airing. I saw this. That's when I fell in love with Shelley Long.
She's great in that. Michael Keaton is great in that. Although it's weird that in a way Michael Keaton was that prototype that we've seen so much now for a guy that's really, really funny and then decides to get dramatic and then just doesn't have time for your...
Him and Robin Williams were like
anymore.
the first.
Yeah.
They were that guy that did that.
Yeah, Robin was probably the first, but Michael Keaton was not soon after, and then Tom Hanks
Clean
did
and
it.
Sober, I
Jim
think,
Carrey
was his
did
first like fully dramatic role, and that was like heavy. Yeah. Michael Keaton was like the quintessential of that, and he got so much shit for Batman.
Yeah. I mean, at least Robin came back to doing comedy.
Well, the weird thing is Michael Keaton has carved out this niche for himself in the last 10 years in these sort of low budget but really well done action movies.
Yeah.
Like where he's like a hired killer on his last run or whatever. And he's really great in them. And it's this weird, like third act of his career where there's like 20 of these action movies starring old Michael Keaton.
He in Mr. Mom, he is so brilliant.
Amazing.
In Night Shift, he's so brilliant. Even in Gung Ho, he's really, really good.
Yeah.
You know, he did that monologue of like, hold on a second, let me explain. Like and what's weird is he had done some stand up, but that wasn't really his thing.
He had worked, his first job ever was working on Mr. Rogers in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
He was an intern on the Mr. Rogers show. And knew Fred Rogers really well, who was like kind of a mentor to him. And in the Won't You Be My Neighbor documentary, they interview Michael Keaton, which is very interesting.
Oh, wow.
And then he moved out to LA to be an actor, but started doing stand up first because at that time that was like the way, along with Craig T. Nelson. And I think the first show he got was Working Stiffs with Jim Belushi, which was that sort of not great sitcom. And
I watched that at the Paley Center.
It's not once. Great. I have 2 laser discs of a couple episodes, which weirdly came out on Laserdisc. But I don't think of him as a comedic actor, even in all the comedies, because he's always playing stuff pretty straight. And when he tries to be, and it's funny, but when he tries to be overly comedic, it would come across as like someone doing a Jack Nicholson impression, like Christian Slater. You know what I mean? It was like, oddly for the Batman later, like as a kid, I always remember like, why is he doing Jack Nicholson? Like that would be, but when he was just being like a weirdo, it was great. And Night Shift's so good.
I agree.
Yeah.
So good. And it was funny is strangely, Henry Winkler imprinted more on me in that film than he ever did as the Fonz. And I love Happy.
Because he's a real character in that movie. And you see that he's an actor. He's not doing a cartoon. You know, he's like playing. It's the first time I think a lot of people saw him act.
And it's interesting that, do you remember when you watch TV and movies and you like realize things about life, like his character being so passive in that film, kind of like a precursor to Dante and Clerks, like seeing the guy that just will not take control of his own life. I remember like being like 8 years old and feeling like, oh, I understand something about the human condition.
Yeah, and 90% of that is him, like as an actor in that movie. Like he could have just been a very like one-dimensional straight man put upon guy in that movie, and it's great.
I mean, people want to talk about Barry, but up there with Barry, I would put Night Shift and the very sad Fonzie Christmas episode of Happy Days where he lies about going to his family's and he's alone and sad.
Yep.
That's also like the pinnacle of Henry Winkler acting.
And his Strong Kids, Safe Kids, Don't Get Molested video that he made with Baby Pack.
And he has such a reputation for being a nice guy. He was doing a signing locally that I was like, no, I can't meet Henry Winkler because this will not live up to the legend of him being the nicest guy in Hollywood.
Only disappoint.
I mean, right? If you were to ask anyone over the age of 30 who's the nicest actor in Hollywood, they would say, well, I hear Henry Winkler is like a total mensch.
Well, so here in Boston, because he went to Emerson and he's like the most supportive alum of that school. He's here like 2 or 3 times a year, like mentoring Emerson kids are like, Henry Winkler's doing a speech. So like he would be here all the time being nice. So like we got extra like Henry Winkler on like the local news, Henry Winkler doing something nice.
Yeah, it's just going to disappoint. Later that night, Dana Hill was on a rerun of The Fall Guy. So nice. She was having a moment.
And side note, the entire Dan Schneider joke revolves around them going to meet Henry Winkler, right? To produce his show, his pitch idea.
And he's the reason John Cusack has the career he does, casting him in The Sure Thing, also one of my favorite films, and that got him Better Off Dead, which I guess Cusack's made peace with.
He will talk about it now, yes.
So Savage Steve Holland is one of those great what ifs to me. Why didn't he have a Tim Burton style career?
He's another guy that I've really tried to get on the show. And he's not a guy that avoids talking about stuff for whatever reason. I haven't been able to get in touch with him. And I think it's because he always wanted to do television and animation. Yeah. And so like he really put a lot into Beans Baxter, which is a
very
good show, very funny, and is very him. It's like almost like they let him do exactly what he wanted to do. Like that's an uncompromised Savage Steve Holland thing. And it failed. And he got a lot of crap for it. And Fox really gave him shit because they were like, you almost tanked our network, which isn't true. But like the people...
It was Werewolf.
Yeah, it was Werewolf and Mr. President. But Beans Baxter got a lot of crap for it. So I think he like kind of pulled back a bit, and he did Eat the Cat, and then he did Lizzie McGuire, and then was just kind of like, I'm just a TV director. That's all I need to do.
It's funny he had a career in that. Did you ever watch Stephen Banks' Home Entertainment Center?
I saw a couple episodes recently.
Well, the Stephen Banks show, but the original was the Showtime one man. Like he went on to do like kids
I saw the PBS
also.
show. He had a PBS sitcom.
Yeah. He had a 1 hour show, and it was around this time on Showtime. Like I think Penn and Teller like produced it or did the intro. But literally the idea is it's an hour in this guy's life while he's procrastinating doing a speech for work, and he's making up songs and doing funny things. And it's like just brilliant. But that was another like could have been, maybe too soon, too late. I just want to point out that night at midnight, Ion Hollywood had New York versus Los Angeles in a breakdancing contest, and I would have stayed up for that.
Who would you bet on? That's tough.
Probably New York.
I think I'd go breakdancing. Yeah, it's competitive.
And then yeah, and then Gregory's Girl was on HBO at 3 a.m.
I love that.
I wasn't ready for that yet.
I would have seen.
It's a great movie, but
I
couldn't imagine if I would have watched that when I was 8. If I would have gotten it.
I think I saw Local Hero first.
Okay.
And then went back and saw Gregory's Girl. Oh, you know what? I saw Gregory's Girl like early 90s because I saw Claire Grogan on Red Dwarf and went back and watched. I rented it. Yeah. It would have been weird seeing it as a single digit child.
Yeah. There's some stuff I think that you have to almost be the right age to appreciate it or have it imprint on you. Like it's just not.
It would have been too Scottish.
It's like King of Comedy. I watched King of Comedy just for the first time recently, and I kicked myself for waiting so long. But if I would have seen that when I was like 10, I wouldn't have understood why that movie is.
Oh, I saw that early, and that and After Hours are like the only 2 Scorsese movies I really like. Like that's how my brain is broken.
So this is. I've done this before, and it's embarrassing, but I didn't see After Hours till a few years ago. And I was like, this is some Adventures in Babysitting ripoff shit. Like, it was just like, this feels so tired to me. This feels like so derivative. Yeah. Like sometimes you just see the right movies in the wrong order and you don't understand.
Yeah. If you've seen the stuff that it got influenced by it misses the.
I didn't see The Exorcist until I was in my 20s, and pop culture had ruined that by parodying it so much it wasn't scary.
The Twilight Zone is that way for a lot of people younger than us. The Simpsons like ruined the Twilight Zone for a lot of kids. Where are we? On to Thursday?
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday. And there's an amazing double-page spread for the Enchanted World Time Life books.
Yes. Oh my God. I got to get that one next. Once we finish.
Here's the thing you got to get. So if you signed up, you got a timeless timepiece, a handsome desk clock, tells the time, date, and month with the digital readout. It is the Time Life Books Enchanted World crystal desk clock you could have gotten.
Oh, that's sweet. I wonder if that comes with the series now if I buy that.
So we're on Wednesday. We got 3 more nights. What are you doing?
Okay, so the Facts of Life is on that night. And strangely, like I've got one of those bootleg cable streaming things where they're showing the Facts of Life. I've watched a lot of Facts of Life recently, and I do not remember, based on this description, everyone is baffled by Blair's sudden, irrational, and bizarre behavior. Like Blair ever acted with a rhyme or reason. Yeah,
that also, what a very vague description.
Yes.
I'm like, is that 10 Little Indians? It's too early for that. What could it be?
They got really weird with it those last few seasons.
Yeah.
Like the cast and the crew were trying to amuse themselves. But hey, better than It's Your Move, which followed that and doesn't even get a description. Just It's Your Move.
You had to go do your own. You did your own research to figure out what episode this was.
If you paid attention, you know it was The Dregs of Humanity, Part 2.
Yes.
Preempted in part of the U.S. by Ronald Reagan's speech. Some might argue that's the worst thing Ronald Reagan ever.
Speaking of Dregs of Humanity.
Yeah.
Nothing was worse. The only thing worse than a political speech interrupting TV was a political speech interrupting a part 2 of a 2-parter.
Oh my God. And you've talked about It's Your Move on this show before. For people that don't know, how would you describe the show?
It's a bit Curb Your Enthusiasm, a bit Oedipus, and a bit Ferris Bueller. I think that's how I would kind of describe it. One of the first shows with an unlikable lead.
See, I idolized Jason Bateman's character in this, and I loved how they showed, especially his relationship with Eli, the late Adam Sadowski, who passed away a few years ago. His sister Trisha Cast. I like that they would have him be Ferris Bueller-like, but they would also, and this was pre-Ferris Bueller, by the way. This isn't a Parker Lewis copycat.
No, and he's basically playing the same character he was on Silver Spoons, more or less.
Yes. But they would show that he had a heart, that he had a soft side. He very much cared for his mom, her single mother, and he was running scams and pranks. And what's funny is the first show opened with, he was selling test answers, he was selling term papers, but they would escalate this as the series went on. The inciting incident was that David Garrison played a new neighbor that moved in across the way, who'd been a former conniving kid, and he had designs on Jason Bateman's mom. So there was an interesting rivalry these two had. And the creators of this show were the creators of Married with Children. They would go on to do Married with Children. But what I like about this show is it's edgy and it has bite and it's sometimes dark. But I feel like Married with Children got kind of lazy and mean.
And cartoonish.
Sometimes.
Cartoonish. Like, It's Your Move. Even the Dregs of Humanity episode, which is probably on paper the most cartoonish plot you could get.
Yeah.
It still feels like a real teen show. Like it's a sitcom.
Yeah.
But and it was an interesting take on the annoying kid. So it wasn't, because like Dennis the Menace is Mr. Magoo, basically. Like all the annoying things he does, he's trying to be nice and is bad at it and they can't get mad at him. Jason Bateman is just a dick. But sometimes he's a dick for the right reason, but he's being an asshole. Like it's not an accident. Like that's he's like conniving, smartest guy. He's like Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, but it's so good though. And David Garrison is so funny in this show and the dynamic they have. I know Dregs of Humanity, we'll talk about that in a second. My favorite episode, and they're all on YouTube, by the way, and I think I tipped you off years ago that after being unavailable everywhere, CTV in Canada was streaming these for some reason.
That's why I got a VPN.
Yeah, to have like studio quality versions of this show.
Unedited, because
it was absolutely amazing.
The syndicated cuts had like 2 or 3 minutes taken out of each episode.
Yeah. My favorite episode is one called Love Letters, which has Christy Swanson as a guest star. And basically there are real love letters being written, but then Jason Bateman and David Garrison are writing them and they don't know what's real and what's fake. And they're trying to outwit each other. And it's just a classic two-hander sitcom episode that is so hilarious, well-timed, well-choreographed, everything.
It's not that dissimilar to the Conrad Bain, Vic Tayback, Love Boat scenario.
Yeah, right. Oh, classic sitcom plot, but it's so well done. And this episode of The Dregs of Humanity, Matthew, Jason Bateman's character, his best friend Eli loses the money for the band for the dance. Jason Bateman can't find another band, and so he dresses up the biolab skeletons in like heavy metal clothing and like cloaks. And then his friend Eli puppeteers them, and they make a comment about where they got the music, but you can't really understand. But then they like mime this performance with the skeletons. And of course the band goes on to be in demand. Everyone wants to book them. Everybody claims, one girl claims she got pregnant by one of the band members. Hotel chains want to sue them, and it spirals. They're in over their heads for this fake band that's a bunch of biolab skeletons.
Yeah. And he has to get out of it by saying they died in like a car wreck, right?
Yes. He fakes their death and then goes on the tag, the button at the end. He's selling the memoir about the band, being interviewed by Nina Blackwood, who's claiming she knew the band and had this close personal connection to them. And this is so hilarious. Yeah. This two-parter.
It's very print the legend. It's a good commentary on it's ahead of its time with that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's so good. And the music, the song, I've tried for years to find out who wrote the song. I remember we were talking about this pre-AI. I just paid somebody on Fiverr.
Yes.
Like, can you just cover this? So I have like a studio version of this song.
And you do.
And I do. What's funny though, I argue, and I'm being only a little facetious, I think Guns N' Roses ripped off the Dregs of Humanity shtick entirely.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Even with the skeletons on the cover.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Like,
It's very accurate. It's
very proto Guns N' Roses.
It's like there was a the Hildebrands, Greg Hildebrandt and his brother who painted fantasy stuff and made Deadly Spawn. They had a rock band as skeletons painting they did that I think they painted first, and then the Grateful Dead appropriated it for an album cover. But it was the first Grateful Dead thing I saw. And I was like, this looks friggin' awesome. And it sounded like garbage because it's the Grateful Dead. And so, but that painting is what the Dregs of Humanity sound like.
Yes. And the Touch of Grey video is like a direct rip off of
100%.
Dregs of Humanity.
If you watch that with no sound, you're like, yeah. Then you turn the sound on and you're like, what?
Like, what's this? It's like the first time when I saw like when I saw pictures of Kiss and I was terrified, and then I listened to Kiss and I was like, what's this weird?
Loving you. Yeah, you're like, no.
Yeah, like the hype of Kiss really made them sound like a much more metal band than they were.
And
but with It's Your Move, so the famous thing about this is that the network got letters from teachers, from parents, saying kids are stealing test answers, trying to sell term papers and imitating this hooligan. And so, again, similar to the John Eric Hexum cover-up situation, the show didn't get canceled. They were like, well, we got an order for 18 episodes. So in the last 8 episodes, like Garrett Morris is like the principal, and like the show drastically changed.
It feels
for the last 8
more
episodes.
like Saved by the Bell for the last, like they really like kitty it down.
Yeah, they really water it down. But here's the crazy thing, Ken. And I want to do a documentary about the show. I love the show so much. Jason Bateman never really talks about this show. He gives the worst answer. The worst answer a celebrity can give you when you ask for a cameo or an interview is when they say like, oh yeah, we had a really good time doing that. And it's like, David Faustino, I wanted to ask you about your hip hop career. And that's really all you can say. Like, we had a good time doing that. Like, come on. But no, so Jason Bateman talks about it. He's like, well, you know, they got letters. We had to stop. Like, that's it. But here's the weirdest thing, Ken. In Jason Bateman's acting career, Marty Byrde on Ozark, Michael Bluth on Arrested Development, and Matthew Burton on It's Your Move.
MBs.
3 MBs are Jason Bateman, in my mind, his most iconic role.
And they're, three career, 3 acts.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
That is a little weird.
Did he request that? That can't be just happenstance.
There's some Svengali pulling the strings behind his whole career. You could have a whole conspiracy theory about this.
Well, and in fact, I'll go further. I think part of the reason Ozark is so great is that the Marty Byrde, his relationship with Julie Garner's character, is a little bit of a flip on the It's Your Move formula of him trying to outsmart a teenager who's trying to outsmart him.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Bluth is like a reformed version of his It's Your Move character.
Yeah, it's very strange.
That is weird.
But I love It's Your Move. I think might not be the greatest sitcom ever created, but it's probably in the running for my absolute
It's
favorite.
unique, and it has again, I think this is like with the After Hours thing. I think if people saw it now, it wouldn't have the impact because so many things since have taken that sort of format, especially in the 90s and like a lot of those Nickelodeon kind of shows and it was very unique for its time. And as you said, pre-Ferris Bueller, it was like, let's do, if Dennis the Menace knew what he was doing. Like his kind of,
a kid who's smarter than the adults.
Yeah. And you're on his side, even though he's in the wrong.
It's so good. I can't recommend it enough. There's a great episode where David Garrison's character Norman is like watching him while his mom and sister are out of town and the apartment gets robbed and they have to go on a game show to like win the furniture to
Happens
replace
all
the
the time,
furniture. Yeah, I mean, some of the episodes are very far-fetched, but when that show was good, it was great.
Yeah. And even those high concept,
really
like cliche sitcom plots, they kind of treat it wasn't ironic, but they would treat it with a little bit of a wink and a nod in the show itself. Like you got the sense of like, oh, we know, like we're kind of making fun of that with this episode.
It was literally ahead of its time because Ferris Bueller came out very soon after. Married with Children went on to great success. Like we had the Parker Lewises, like you said, all the Nick shows. The idea of the smart teenager, like this, I'm sure somebody did something like this evolved from, but this really took it up a notch in a way that if you were a kid watching this show, you felt seen and you felt empowered and inspired.
Yeah, it was which
was the problem.
In a pre-Nickelodeon, as we think of it in the heyday world, this was the like kids versus adults show. I can't think of one before this that was quite this way. And and this is a weird thing. I always equate it in my brain for no real reason with its Gary Shandling show. And I think it might just because the apartment looked like it, but it feels like just a slight turn and it would become its Gary Shandling show. Like at any moment, Bateman's character could break the fourth wall, or like, it feels like it could go there. It never does, but it feels like it almost could.
Absolutely. It was so good. And I think about my journey. I mean, Ferris Bueller was good, but Ferris Bueller was like far-fetched to the point where
he's a rich kid with like superpowers.
Yeah. Like it just didn't feel real. Parker Lewis was cool. I would also argue that one that was probably inspirational to a generation, which is a little cringy now, but like Pump Up the Volume.
Sure.
Like when you saw that, like I was 13 when that came out. Like that was like, whoa.
We all do podcasts because of Pump Up the Volume.
Absolutely. This industry.
100%.
I mean, like, really? Like, is it that different? You know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, if people haven't seen Nature Move, it's all on YouTube in like really good quality because those CTV rips were studio.
100% recommended, especially the first season. Check it out. And it seems like it'd be stupid if you just watch the opening credits. It feels like a dumb 80. Yeah. It feels like, We Got It Made or something, but stick with it.
River Phoenix is in the first episode of It's Your Move in the opening scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Justine Bateman has a role in a
she does. I forgot about that.
Another episode.
And was Teen Wolf 2 out the same week as Satisfaction? I feel like those two were against each other in the box office. That might be a false memory I have, but I feel like that was true.
Oh my God.
Neither one of them.
Which one? Yeah, which one? Gun to your head. If you had to pick one to watch of those two movies, which would you watch?
Satisfaction.
Yeah, same.
Trini Alvarado's in it. Are you kidding me? Satisfaction.
Yeah, Julia Roberts. Justine Bateman's overacting on the beach scene when she's confronting Liam Neeson. Yep. You lie, you're a liar.
And the singing voice of Jem herself, who's in the band Luna, who I've had on the show, and I can't remember her name.
Oh, I did not know she was
she's the bass player in Satisfaction. The one who's like a drunk.
You know what's weird is I have
Britta
memories
Phillips.
of Jem and the Holograms.
Britta Phillips, that's
I have memories of Jem and the Holograms and music from that, like in detail the songs, and then it was like, oh, we should rewatch it. All my memories apparently are from the first episode. Yeah, that's all I ever saw, but it imprinted directly.
And the songs are like 10 seconds. Like, yeah, Britta. When I had Britta on, she talked about that, and she was like, she recorded all of them in like 2 days. And then they used them for like 4 years. There's like 30 songs.
That's very impressive. What else? I think with Wednesday, like that's really all you need.
That's the whole night. Yeah. You can't improve on that.
I mean, I would have had St. Elsewhere on after, but I would have been processing each.
It also feels like that also felt like a show that I felt like I was too young to watch. Not because it was like dirty, but I was like, I need to go to college to watch this.
Dude, I tried watching Hill Street Blues last year for the first time. That is so depressing.
It's really grim. It's kind of slow. But it feels like work. You're like, this is well done, but it's not fun.
But it's weird because as a kid, I loved LA Law.
Yeah, because it seemed wacky. It was like, it had like they would do some weird things that were unexpected for that kind of show that were like sort of, I mean, not Night Court wacky, but like for that show felt like it.
Yeah, and I think especially when David Kelly joined, like they really perfected that mix of like fun case, serious case issues.
Yep.
And it's so funny to me that the entire reason he got the job on that show was because he did that movie From the Hip.
Yes.
Which I can't think of another movie ever that has such an amazing first half and then just a completely grueling, uninteresting
Like
second.
someone's like, did you finish the script? And he's like, what do you mean? And they're like, you need a second part. And he's like, oh shit. Like it has that vibe.
How about we do this murder case?
Oh man,
You know?
really? That's not the whole thing?
The first half of that movie is so good.
Yeah.
And that was like Judd Nelson, like peak Judd
Yeah,
Nelson.
and his parents are lawyers. Judd Nelson, like that feels like he's all in on that movie.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Let's see. On Thursday, God, it's so weird because you think about any Thursday in the 1980s and you just think about NBC.
Yeah.
Like, has any guest ever given you an answer where they just say like, no, I wanted to see what CBS had going on that.
Some people have been like in the 90s, there's like sort of a backlash of some of that stuff. But this night, like I'm kind of surprised. It's still, this is the sort of beginning of the second iteration or the first iteration of the like must-see TV night. So you got Cosby, you got Family Ties before it moved to Sundays. But then, you know, you got Cheers, and then the 9:30 is Night Court. This is the first season that Night Court gets slotted in there. So this is like when it starts to feel like that Thursday nights is like a thing.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's the peak.
Yeah.
Of NBC must-see TV Thursday nights. I mean, no better. Cosby Show classic episode that night. Theo gets his ear pierced.
That's a great one. That's a great one.
Absolutely great. Do you remember, did your parents have that? My mom was so worried about me getting my ear pierced.
My mother was
In the
very
80s.
much like, you should do that, get a tattoo, get your ear pierced. And I'm like, I was very much against it. But you probably can't see it here, but I have a freckle on this ear that looks like where you would get your ear pierced, right? And my grandfather was watching me. I must have been 10. And he looked and he goes, what the hell is this? Like he was convinced that I had, and I was like, it's a freckle. And then he got mad saying I was lying to him. It was a whole thing. Eventually I was vindicated, but yeah, there was a real fear of parents at the time.
I wore a stick-on earring once. My mom flipped out.
Nice.
Flipped out.
Nice.
I would have tuned into Family Ties that night, hoping for an Alex episode.
Yeah.
As a child, and it was Mallory mourns the death of her favorite.
This is a heavy one.
It's a heavy
This is a heavy one. This is one of the ones that, like Family Ties, maybe 2 or 3 times a season would smack you in the face with a heavy one.
They would do that, or it's like, and now Meredith Baxter Burney gets an episode. We've got Elise, and
Elise
and
has
it's
a
just
new
like,
job
oh,
and
guys,
she's being sexually harassed, and you're like, ugh.
well, like guys, we understand this is what you pitched the show as about the parents, but you know, Michael Gross is on board with this shift to making it about the kids. MBB, you gotta play ball
Well,
here.
because she was the one who was like, I had my own show before this. I'm the star. Everyone else, this is their first gig.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think, again, there are some great episodes of Family Ties, but if you do a complete rewatch of that series, especially in the later seasons, they really were like week to week. Like, I'll give you an example of this. Band on the Run, one of the most far-fetched and silliest episodes of the series, one that I appreciate, but it's not a good episode. That aired within like 2 weeks of My Name is Alex.
It's like a whiplash tone shift. It's ridiculous.
It's a tough rewatch. In the later seasons, though, I would argue that Skippy Goes in the Army is actually a pretty solid
That is a good
episode.
one. The one where Skippy meets his real parents.
Yeah, that was well done.
But then that was around the same time where the one where Skippy and Mallory get locked in the basement together and they have to put on like squirrel
with
costumes
the
or something.
Squirrel costumes. Yeah.
Nick got a bad reputation of being like a one-note character. But and it might just be because I've had Scott Valentine on the show and I've talked about he's an awesome dude. But I've gone back and rewatched those, and I appreciate all of his stuff so much more and realize how funny it is. Like, he's
good.
So good.
And I think that, like you, I could tell you as a listener, if somebody is a good podcast guest on this show, or like back on Loveline before Adam and Drew lost their damn minds, my opinion would really change on people based on what a good guest they were, and then I view their work differently. But I also have a soft spot in my heart for any episode. And I think of the one where Alex is going to help Nick sell his art. I love any episode, like when Joe's going to make her mom's pizza and then she learns don't cut corners and skip. As a kid, I feel like that actually secretly taught me a lot about art, commerce, business. I feel like that was like, I still think about the Joe Pizza episode all the time.
And it was also,
when people talk about cutting corners.
It's also a way for those guys who are writers to be like, we're making a product, like a manufactured product, but we're also artists. Like, it's like them kind of working that out as like writers. But like when I look at Nick too, I'm like, oh, he's like a sincere character. He treats Mallory really well. Like he could have been like a really cliche, like asshole bad boy in and out of jail, like Snake on Facts of Life before they hired Damone to play him, but when they would just talk about him, but they make him like a true character who's like treats her so well and like wins over the dad, and like it's just a really interesting. It's not the dynamic I remembered when I rewatched it.
Yeah, it's the Nick stuff. I think Nick gets a bad rap on Family Ties. Like, I agree with that. It definitely, there are some good episodes. I think that this is what we've lost though in the streaming season, 8 episodes a year, 12 episodes a year, is Family Ties did have to fill 22 episodes each season. So some of that weirdness is now just gone from TV.
Because you can't take, not even that you can't take a chance, you don't have to. You don't have to fill where they're like, okay, fine, we need to have an episode this week.
And it's kind of become generic now where shows are like, well, we'll do a musical episode. Well, we'll do this. It's like, watch My Name is Alex. That is super just defying of genres. Like, that was a very avant-garde way to do a sitcom. I still think that's one of the best episodes of the series.
No one's done that since. No one's even tried. Yeah. Like, the closest I can think of is like when Growing Pains did like Our Town. Right. So, which was sort of, but they still had to have that conceit of it being them in a play. It was like, I've never seen anyone even try and do that.
Well, and I liked when Head of the Class would do the musicals every year. I still think their version of Hair in my mind is the definitive version.
I'm like that for Little Shop of
Horrors.
Always will
be. Yeah. Although off Broadway, I did see that with Sarah Hyland and the kid from No Hard Feelings. It was pretty good.
I bet. It's just such a good musical. It's like bulletproof.
Yeah, I was going to say, though, that Growing Pains, and again, thanks to the bootleg cable with the streaming, because there's the Growing Pains channel, and sometimes I'll turn it on, and it will be the Chrissy years and the Leonardo DiCaprio years. Now, see, like you, I had that reaction. I was like, oh, that's where it went downhill. Having it on, I will actually say the show was often quite funny in the last 2 or 3 seasons. You just have to get through a lot of like... Kirk was requesting this one, you can tell.
When he's not around in their sort of band episodes, DiCaprio episodes, like there's some quality stuff there.
There's an episode where Chrissy refuses to go to sleep because she's convinced
they have parties when she's
they have parties. Yep. That episode is actually brilliant.
And they use Kirk Cameron really well. They have her play like her imaginary friend, because she has no relationship with her older brother. And so she's like created him as this like magical. It's actually a really smart episode and is a great way for the writers to deal with Kirk Cameron being a stupid asshole. Like they make him play a ridiculous character. But it works.
Or what about, you might have talked about this episode because I think you've had Jeremy Miller on, right?
No. Yeah, I have. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Oh, so I did watch the one you talked about in the panel where it's him and Mike and the best night of Ben's life. Yes. That's a good episode. But the other one where Jeremy Miller, where Ben exists outside of the sitcom world?
When he's having his tonsils out and he has this whole hallucination that he's on a TV show.
Yeah, like there was, I mean, you could tell that, again, 22 episodes a year, like one writer was like, you know what, screw it, I'm getting weird with it.
Yeah, and they're
week.
like, fine. Yeah, he tries
Yeah.
to go to his house and it doesn't exist. It is a studio. Yeah, and he gets recast
Yes.
as
From Sam from
yes,
Diff'rent Strokes. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Danny
Danny
Cooksey.
Cooksey, which is such a great inside joke of like,
Yeah.
And I have to, I mean, Cooksey probably wasn't as knowing about it then, but like whoever made decisions for him at that time to take that role of like a knowing, yes,
Yeah.
you'll play the annoying kid on this as a joke is great.
Yes, absolutely. But that night, Cheers, that's the Snipe Hunt episode with Frasier. Classic episode. What was Night Court?
Night Court, this one is Ellen Foley still on the show. So this is before we have Christine. This is when Dan's parents arrive. And so it's his actual parents and who are the Hicks, he told everyone weren't his parents because his real name's Reinhold and he grew up really poor and a hick.
Do we get the Reinhold reveal on this episode? Because I thought that was later.
I think that is later, but this is the one where they're like, yeah, Dan grew up really poor and he told everyone his parents were dead.
Yeah, because I remember the picture with him in the accordion, right?
Yes.
Like still
Yes.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan is another character that you're like, that's problematic. It wouldn't hold up. What an unlikable person. But
Yeah.
through the sheer charm and skill of John Larroquette is so good.
I tried with the reboot.
I haven't even
the
tried it.
requel
I've heard
version.
it's not great.
He's good.
Yeah.
The connection to Harry is it feels direct to video sequel when it's like, oh, I'm the daughter, but we didn't ever saw.
Yeah, I've heard it feels very
like,
Big
yeah.
Bang Theory more than Night Court.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Like, but we just didn't feel compelled to watch it. And Marshall Warfield, I think, shows
She
up.
does. Yeah. And Julia Duffy's on the last seasons along with what's her name? Wendy Wendy Malick.
Oh, yeah. And Wendy Malick is delightful.
Yeah.
Although it's so funny, I know with Just Shoot Me and her other roles, for me, it's always Dream On.
Me too.
And I will defend the last after the Uncle Bouncy episode, Dream On actually becomes a really good
It
show.
does. And like the season where they're making a movie of Wendy Malick's character's husband and David Bowie's in it, it's so good.
Yes.
It's so good. There's a line that I always quote where Martin Tupper sits down and David Bowie plays like the director of this movie about the guy's life.
Yeah.
And Martin Tupper tries to like butt into the conversation and David Bowie's like, we were just talking about you. And he's like, what, who's going to play me in the movie? He goes, no, we were talking about what vegetable we think you look like. And he's like, and I think he goes like, he said onion, but I feel like it's just not bulbous enough. It's like the weirdest insult and Bowie reads it so funny and it's so bizarre. Dream On became like a very, like the gimmick. It outclassed its gimmick eventually.
Absolutely.
Danny Dillon,
And unfortunately, the later seasons aren't really available.
no.
The way the early seasons on DVD were. But I think of that. I think of the one where he starts dating. Martin dates a woman that's supposed to be like Courtney Love, and she writes all the songs and the Hurricane Judith song. Uncle Bouncy episode is like double S tier funny. But then additionally, Michael McKean.
Yes.
On that
the
show
Australian
is so
boss, right?
hilarious. Yeah.
He's such an asshole. It's so good. Yeah. It had a great cast.
But every time I tell my wife or try and talk to anybody about like, no, Dream On actually got good. Like they just look at me like I'm on
like
fire.
you just want to see boobs and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, no, it actually, and you know what's funny though? I didn't have HBO. So the first time I didn't have HBO at the time. So the first time I saw HBO was the weird Fox edits with the
laugh track.
The laugh track. Yeah. That was, Fox was trying some stuff, but
and they made Danny Dillon like a good character later. She wasn't just like a joke. Like she had like, it was. I'd like to revisit those seasons. I have bootlegs of them, but I want to rewatch those.
Yeah, I went, and I'm afraid it's not going to hold up. But I remember at the time. In fact, I think I still have the VHS recordings of that because that would be on back to back with Larry Sanders.
Yeah, and it was back to back with Tales from the Crypt before that. They would always premiere the new episodes in the summer. It would be Thursday nights, I think.
During the pandemic, I was really glad we rewatched all of Larry Sanders, and actually I find it way funnier now than I did.
I bet I feel like it was a little too inside at the time. Like the more you know about that world, the funnier it is when you watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still that is one of my favorite shows of all
I need to revisit it. I didn't give it enough of a chance, and it's been like just hovering over me. Next pandemic.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Yes.
There's a thing before we move on to the final night.
Yeah.
There's a thing on PBS that sounds like a joke of someone trying to make the most boring show of all time. And it's called Secretaries of State in Conference 1985. Former Secretaries of State Dean Rusk, William Rogers, Cyrus Vance, and Edward Muskie discuss U.S. foreign policy in a November session in Atlanta. Moderator Edward Newman. Like, it just sounds like a thing you would punish a kid with.
Yeah, that's like some C-SPAN shit.
You're going to watch the Secretaries of State in Conference 1985. No.
I mean, I wouldn't watch the equivalent of that now, and I'm vaguely interested in that stuff.
Sounds so boring.
Emo Phillips was on Letterman.
Oh, I'd 100% watch that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Awesome dude.
Funnier now.
I've done shows with him and talked to him about doing this show, and the only reason he said no is he's doing a character, right? And he can't really do a show like this in character. So he's like, I can't, which I totally get.
Sure.
I mean, he's still like
I've
that.
never heard him talk out of character.
He's still like that, but not that much. You know what I mean? Like, which is why he's not doing stuff like out of character.
Yeah, no, he's good. When he was opening for Weird Al a few years ago, like one of my favorite stand-up sets I've ever seen.
Yeah, I did a show with him. It was maybe 2017. It was me, Eugene Merman, Jonathan Katz, Mara Wilson, and Emo Phillips was the show.
Wow. Although did you see this? Someone uploaded to one of the sites a few months ago, like Judy Tenuta's One Night Stand. Yes. And that I was like, oh, this is not aged well.
No. And it was no one was doing that at the time at all. But sure. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, it really hasn't held up. So Friday. Wow.
You got a big premiere, big series premiere.
What Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune?
Street Hawk.
The week that
starring Rex Smith.
Oh my God. Dude, as a kid, I don't know about you, if you told me a show was about a motorcycle, a helicopter, really like Misfits of Science, Automan, I was the high concept kid. I was in Manimal.
Yep. Yeah.
Loved them
this
all.
One, the full page ad says, all new series premiere. They couldn't kill him. Now they can't escape him. I don't even quite know what that means. Street Hawk starring Rex Smith. Rex Smith being the original TV Daredevil. Played Daredevil in the Incredible Hulk Returns. But this episode, so this is the first episode of the show, guest starring George Clooney.
Oh. Hey, wasn't he in like the Hat Squad?
Yes.
Like he had a lot of TV.
A lot of stuff, yeah. But I forgot that he was in this first episode of Street Hawk.
I mean, okay, look, Wolverine and Deadpool didn't do it, but in the Secret Wars multiverse thing, can we just get him as Daredevil? Can we get Vincent D'Onofrio as Thor?
100%. He'd be great.
David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury. Like, let's
Hasselhoff
bring back everyone.
Looks like Nick Fury the most. The movie's terrible,
and I think D'Onofrio. That was one. D'Onofrio doing Adventures in Babysitting, and then doing Full Metal Jacket. Like within a year, like as a kid. It was like Fisher Stevens going from My Science Project to Short Circuit.
Yes.
Someone told me it was the same guy. And I was like, how is this guy not getting nominated?
Or when
he
shows up in Brother from Another Planet.
Yeah. That night, Dukes of Hazzard.
With Jeff Altman as Hughie Hogg.
That's someone. Do you ever have this when you watch things from an era and you just like, I want to just like, I just hear in my voice, like, someone going like, the network was very high on him.
Yeah.
Convinced he was going to be the next star.
I've never heard anything bad about Jeff Altman. By all accounts, nice guy. I don't know. Pops up all the time. Never is amusing or good or entertaining to me. And yes, absolutely. You're like, who in power loved Jeff Altman? Because he just kept getting on everything.
I mean, like Jennifer Runyon was in everything for like a 4-year
Yes,
span.
100%.
Best agent, like their agent, maybe it was Mike Ovens.
Could have been, yeah.
Like best agent in Hollywood.
He goes, you got to put
Repping
Runyon
them
in
both.
this. Look, here's what you're
Yeah.
gonna do.
Now I don't know. And she played Cindy Brady.
The best fake Brady.
That happened. Yeah, arguably. I don't know about you. So were you aware of entertainment news as a child beyond like Entertainment Tonight? Or
Not beyond entertainment. Well, yes and no. So I 100% watched Entertainment Tonight every night. I would read TV Guide, obviously, which would have quite a bit of that stuff in there.
Sure.
But aside from that, I read cover to cover Fangoria and Cine Fantastique. So I would know that kind of stuff.
So I read Premiere in the mid to late 80s. And I love that I lived in Michigan at the time. And as a kid in the Midwest, I felt like a Hollywood insider.
Yeah.
Because I had the inside dirt from Premiere magazine. And I was very good at that. I went on the Dukes of Hazzard when Bo and Luke showed back up after the Coy and Vance
The
season.
fake Dukes.
I would argue that when that happened, I would have probably told you that was the best day of my life. Because I had no clue it was happening. And I was so over the
They kept
moon
it under
about
wraps.
I didn't know. And I don't know if the trades had leaked it ahead of time, but I was so thrilled.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember feeling like, and this will sound ridiculous, but I remember feeling like, looks like Studio One. Like I was like, oh, big shots left to do your thing, and then who comes crawling back? Like I legitimately thought that as a kid. Because once you left a show and they made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, have you interviewed either?
No,
of them?
I haven't. That would be interesting though.
I mean, for a variety of
Yes.
reasons now, that would be very
Yes.
interesting. But I'd love for you to say that to John Schneider, that was your response.
I feel like they'd be like, "You're right."
Yeah. His country career wasn't taken off.
He's like, "Hey guys, maybe I could come back. Hey, I noticed the cartoon was pretty fun. Maybe I could do the voice." Because the cartoon had the fake Dukes.
Yeah. Oh, now that bums me out when I watch the cartoon and it's like, what? That's not even the voice of the Jacksons? Like, it's like you didn't know as a kid.
It's like, that's not the real Junkyard Dog. It's all Brad Garrett. Brad Garrett's every character on Rock and Wrestling.
Yes. Webster was on that night. Fake intruder, who turns out to be Bill and Cassie's daughter. I've not seen that episode.
This is the season premiere of, it's a repeat of this season. So what this is they, they did a mid-season new season because the first season is when they're in the apartment building that Webster burns down with a rocket after he sees Mam and George having sex and they tell him they were screwing in a light bulb. So they go rent this house in Chicago where the owner of the house and his wife live in the basement and they rent the house, but there's secret passageways in the clock and stuff. And so Webster finds one. He goes into the bedroom that's like walled off and there's a human-sized doll he thinks is a real girl. And he like pulls it and the chair turns around and it's a doll. And then it's like cuts the commercial and it's horrifying. And it turns out, their daughter ran away and they haven't touched her room since then. And they have this doll in there like it's her. And that becomes Webster's room. It's horrifying.
Wow. Okay, I need to watch this one because I think about with Webster, still, don't tell anyone you're going to be alone at home because then people will break into your house and you have to outsmart. It was like Die Hard with Webster using the secret passageway.
And his annoying friggin' his friend's older brother comes in to rob him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that episode often. And then is it true? I feel like it's internet lore about how the series actually ended with like Webster about to get like beaten up after he moves to the city with his uncle.
Yeah, that's lore. The last episode ends up being him on the set of Star Trek.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look at it's real weird. Like for no apparent reason, it's like Webster's in Star Trek: The Next Generation for the last episode. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. I mean,
it's really weird.
Sure. I mean, Webster, I've heard Emmanuel Lewis on your podcast. Actually, that was another thing. You asked him about City Connection, I believe, his Japanese hit single. And he kind of gave the same answer, like, yeah, we had a really good time doing that. And it's like, dude, like, I want details.
Yeah, and it was a huge hit. And he was like, yeah. But then he did get into a lot of stuff with like his Burger King stuff. And like, that was fun.
Yeah, and no one's ever explained to me then the video game and then which uses the instrumental. Like, I didn't know about that song probably until about, I think maybe your podcast.
Yeah, a lot of people
would
didn't.
turn me on to City Connection.
Yeah, he was. That's why I was expecting him to talk more about it, because it was like didn't really come up very much.
Dude, it happens all the time when I get cameos for friends where I'm like, hey, let me ask you about something really hyper niche that no one ever asks you about. And they're just like, yep, had a good time doing that. Anyhow, happy birthday.
Yeah. I mean, you get what they don't want to talk about for whatever reason, or they legitimately might not remember as well. Like, I feel like some of that stuff, you know, they're like, I went in and did a 1-day job and I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I did enjoy though on your Growing Pains cast reunion how Julie McCullough just saucy.
Oh yeah,
and a little like ready.
She doesn't care. She'll tell you everything. And I did enjoy eventually. Me, Jeremy Miller, and her were giving Tracy Gold shit about making Boner leave.
That's really funny. I caught that joke though that I don't think you guys mentioned on that Best Night of Ben's Life episode. When they go to the drive-in, the producers had a sense of humor because on the movie mark, he was Big Bad Mama 2, which Julie McCullough was in. And this was after she'd been fired from the show.
Directed by Jim Wynorski.
Yeah. But I love that they were messing with Kirk.
Because they loved her. Like, they loved her on that show. Yeah. Kirk, what a fucking asshole.
You know, and I watched some of the Way of the Master videos, and I was like, sure, he's a little pretentious and full of himself. Him talking to, you know, gang members about Jesus and paying your fine, like his shtick, like
he believes it.
A tier.
He believes it.
Yeah. And he could sell. Yeah. He could sell. But yeah, everything since then, I was like, oh, this is as bad as he is. This isn't that bad. And oh no, folks.
Have you seen Kirk Cameron Saves Christmas?
No, but I have heard about it.
Oh boy. That's a so bad it's good watch. But that is like the unedited Kirk Cameron. It is.
Good Christian Fun, which is a very great podcast where they look at Christian media with a cheeky
like
lens.
Thief in the Night.
I'll say this. Yeah, like Fireproof's actually an okay movie for that sort of thing. Like it's competent. It's decently done. It's got a message, but it's watchable. But yeah, some of these documentary sense, I'm like, nah, I can't.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen Thief in the Night?
I can't. No, tell me about
Oh, God. So Thief in the Night, look it up. It's a post-apocalyptic 70s Christian film series. And it's super low budget and creepy. It took me years to find a copy. You can find it easily now. But it basically was like, in the future, the World Health Organization or the United Nations becomes the great beasts army, and all these people get raptured, and they make everybody take the mark of the beast, and there's like an underground Christian it's nuts, and it's super 70s, and they would show it to kids, and it's really violent. There's like beheadings and like full-on gore in it. It's creepy as hell. There's 3 movies, I think, the Thief in the Night series.
And why is it always the WHO and United Nations? Because Left Behind does the same thing.
Because there's a uniquely, I feel like in those evangelical Christian worlds, which are uniquely American, there's such an America-centric Christianity that any multiculturalism or influence of other states that are equal to America, because America isn't, hey guys, not the greatest country in the world. Like, there's other greatest countries. Like, everyone likes their country. You know what I mean? Like, anything that questions that has to be evil. And it's
so globalism
is bad. They have this view that like God has picked America, like we're the chosen country. Like it's bonkers.
Okay. No, I mean, I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand that
it makes sense. That's
from a world.
That's the outsider, you know. But yes, it is always that.
Interesting. Street Hawk.
Yes.
That night, the leader of an auto theft ring targets Street Hawk for destruction. Now, is Street Hawk the name of the bike or the name of the guy and the bike?
The guy and the bike.
And in my head, I think about the Nighthawk from Midnight Caller.
Yeah. Different Hawk. There was a lot of Hawks.
Yes,
there was also a
man
called Hawk at this time.
That's true. People loved Hawks.
Yeah, Hawks were big.
Hawks and Cobras.
There's a show that sounds dirty called Exciting People, Exotic Places. And it's a travel log which sends Pam Dauber and Paris Kambata to India and Nepal and Brooke Shields on safari. Brooke Shields on safari.
That sounds great.
Exciting People, Exotic Places. That's the name of the show.
That actually, I mean, it's a good concept.
Yeah. I mean, Brooke Shields on safari sounds like a joke, like a critic joke.
Yeah.
Or like
right?
you can't do that on television. Like Brooke Shields on safari will not be seen tonight.
I would watch it. And then what else? Oh man, like this is such a good week for like this is peak 80s. Literally, if we look at the dead center of the 1980s.
Yeah, 100%.
And Honeymooners reruns on all the time.
Yep, which I loved. I loved how poor they were. The articles here, it has that Elvis article about why the thing won't die. But then this other article that really grabbed me was an article about the real life Vermont inn that Newhart's based on and the people who run it.
Yes.
And that was really interesting.
It's weird too, because I feel like that would have been that would have been like going to Bull and Finch back in the day. Like there were so few places where you could, I mean, which is weird to say now, but kids, back in the 80s, there were very few places where you could actually go and feel like you were connecting with the popular
outside
culture.
of Hollywood, where you could actually go to the set of a thing you watched.
Yes.
Again, I will say when I went to the Monroeville Mall from Dawn of the Dead in 2005, that was the closest thing I've ever had to a religious experience. I was like, I've seen this movie so many times and I know the whole layout of this place. I'd never been here. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's like now I'm here.
Yeah.
It's
standing in the elevator. Yeah, like that was nuts. Bullfinch nuts.
Yeah, and it's like now. Yeah, and now it's like, oh, Pasadena City Hall. That's Pawnee City Hall from Parks and Rec. Like there's so many places you can go.
Although I still, when I would go out in LA, it would still strike me as how strange it was. Like when I went to like Pee Wee's house, or like you know the my so-called life houses that I like was like almost crying.
I ended up at the Puente Hills Mall just randomly, and that was in the parking lot. And I was like, wait a second.
It seems familiar.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite is when you realize later and then you confirm like you're actually there. But also I lived in a town for many years that was where they shot like Peggy Sue Got Married and American Graffiti. So it's also weird when you just completely take it for granted.
Oh yeah. It's weird around here too, because for a while we were like the go-to area where they would shoot period pieces. So they did, they did mermaids here. And if you and the Good Son got shot. That's not a period piece, but the Good Son was shot here.
Underrated.
I auditioned
film.
for that movie as a kid.
Wait, really?
Long story, but I got in that, like mixed up in that world for a bit because I used to do martial arts and they were combing the schools for someone to play Robin in Batman Returns. And I auditioned for that. And I got like a callback and like an on tape thing. Obviously didn't get it and they didn't use Robin in Batman Returns. Not that I would have got it, but the lady.
And didn't Marlon Wayans
was
get
cast.
paid for not doing
They
that?
did costume and everything. You got cast. It's in the script and they never used them, never shot a frame of film with them. But the lady who was casting that was one who cast Eddie Furlong as John Connor. So she was the woman I like read with and stuff. And she wouldn't shut up about casting Eddie Furlong. So then I got auditioned for The Good Son, Dutch, which they shot some up here.
Underrated
Great
film
movie.
in the John Hughes
Great
canon.
movie. And School Ties.
Okay. So yeah, all the ones shot there. That makes
Didn't get
sense.
any of those, but Good Son would have been great.
Yeah, that movie, I think that movie is much better than it gets credit.
Yeah, I really hated Macaulay Culkin at the time, but I've totally come around to really liking him, and I think that has helped with my enjoyment of that movie.
It's really good. That and a double feature of Orphan.
Oh yeah,
like a
good one.
really good time.
Or if you're feeling Family Ties, Mikey.
Yeah.
If you've never seen Mikey, it stars Andy himself.
Oh,
right after Family Ties got canceled, and he plays a murderous orphan.
Okay, that's going on the watch list. I didn't know aside from Blank Check, you'd done other.
Absolutely insane. He's like murdering foster parents. Nuts.
Awesome. Okay, I've been taking notes,
Yes.
Ken. Taking notes live here.
I'll need full update of everything you watch. I have some stuff I have to find, and we'll have to reconvene in 1 year's time. Let's reconvene on this very spot.
Yes. No, but this is great, dude. And then looking at the issue, the other thing I want to call out is Catherine Bach's publicist getting her that feature in TV.
Huge
Guide.
feature, like way late in the Dukes of Hazzard era.
Did she do anything?
No.
After Dukes of
She did
Hazzard?
some horror movies, but not really. I feel like she was one of those typecast and then Hollywood being like, you're too old because you're 30.
And then failed to capitalize on the Daisy Dukes trend.
Yeah. Although I think it was over by then. I think there was a 90s resurgence that she was like, I don't want anything to do with, but probably should have.
It's really crazy. I mean, that's the arc. I mean, you see it like we were talking about earlier with the conventions. It's like everybody is like, don't typecast me. I don't want to talk about this. And it's like, wait, I can get paid what for a photo? Like,
and I think there's a sincere part too where people are like, I think a lot of actors have their memory of a thing they worked on, and if it wasn't good or they didn't have a good time or it wasn't a good experience, they assume everyone who watches it will take that, and then they come to a realization later that like the work transcended their feeling about it, and that there are people who truly it connected with them or they really like it, and then they kind of come around to it.
Yeah. And again, I'll say this: watch the Chasing Amy
I haven't seen it
documentary.
yet. I'll
If
have
you
to
haven't
watch
seen
it.
it. It's very well done, and some things very much.
Well, there's the classic Mark Hamill thing he stole from Vincent Price. If you've ever heard this story.
No,
he goes, I did a lot of movies that weren't great or, and whatever. And I used to be like, that's garbage. And he's like, and I realized that was such like an asshole thing to do if people like this thing. He goes, so I saw Vincent Price once on the Tonight Show and they brought up a movie. I forget what it was, but it was something like Madhouse or, Theater of Blood or something. Yeah. And Vincent Price goes, wasn't that a marvelous piece of rubbish? And he goes, and that was such a great way to like, to say, hey, that was garbage, but it was really fun and I'm glad you like it, basically. And so that's what he says. Right? He's like, if someone's like, hey, the Guyver or Corvette Summer, he's like, isn't that a marvelous piece of rubbish?
That's amazing.
And he's like, and people feel better. It's like way better than being like, no, your opinion's wrong. The thing you like is stupid.
I know. See, I think though, anytime I meet anyone of note, my goal is to have a memorable and unique interaction with them, which usually means I want to talk about something that people don't talk about with them normally, or I want to approach something from a different angle. With Tom Wilson, when I met him in the 90s, I was like, dude, Blood In, Blood Out. And also let's talk about the Turner and Hooch pilot.
April Fool's Day.
You were in. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about The Facts of Life. Like, let's talk about anything other than Back to the Future.
Yeah. Which they appreciate a lot of times. And they're like, one of my questions, like go-to when people listen to the show a lot, probably picked up on this, but like one of my go-to questions for actors is like, is there something you're particularly proud of that you feel like not enough people saw? And 9 out of 10 people will like light up and have some movie. And a lot of times it's something I never even heard of and I'm a fan and I've checked it out and I've loved it. So like, they're people love to talk about that stuff.
That's awesome.
That's a little tip from me to the listener. If you, but also sometimes I'll ask people and they'll go, no. That's happened a few times too. Something you're particularly proud of? No. Okay. Let's move on. Well, I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. It was so nice talking to you. And we'll have to do this again.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. That's Glenn, expert witness, and good dude. I hope you like that episode. I don't know if you broke it up. People like the long ones. That's what they tell me. We'll have to have him on again. Maybe we can make 4 hours. I don't know. Again, thanks to the patrons. Thank you guys for listening. And I hope you'll be here next week for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the dregs of humanity! Menudo!